The dawn of humanity. The air is warm and full of life. The light of morning falls across open plains that stretch endlessly toward the horizon. The earth is young in its silence, untouched, yet full of promise. You are standing now, barefoot in the soil of a forgotten world. The grass brushes your skin, and the air carries the faint hum of insects, the distant cry of birds. Somewhere nearby, a small group of our ancestors moves quietly through the savannah. They walk with an easy rhythm, balanced and graceful, shaped by generations of survival beneath the sun. They are not yet farmers or builders or kings. They are gatherers, hunters, and dreamers, beings who look at the world not with understanding, but with wonder. Their tools are simple chipped stone, sharpened bone, yet in their eyes burns something extraordinary. A spark of curiosity, a fragile awareness that would, in time, ignite the mind of humankind. As you breathe, imagine the rhythm of their footsteps blending with your own heartbeat. Slow, steady, enduring. With every exhale, you travel deeper into their world, a time before cities, before nations, before even words. Only the endless sky above, and the great herds that roam the plains. Night falls. The first humans gather around a flickering flame. The fire crackles softly, and faces glow in its golden light. No one speaks. They do not yet have words for the world they see, but they understand its rhythm, the turning of days, the rising of stars, the quiet order of the earth. You can almost hear the silence between the crackles, that vast, sacred quiet where thought begins. Perhaps it is here, in this stillness, that the first stories were born, not with language, but with gesture and gaze, with shared awe at the mystery of being alive. Take a deep breath. As you exhale, feel the warmth of that fire touch your skin, even across the gulf of millennia. It is the same warmth that once kept your ancestors alive. It is the same flame that still burns in the heart of every mind that wanders, every soul that seeks meaning. Thousands of generations pass, and humankind begins to move. They follow the rivers, the coasts, the stars. They spread out from the valleys of East Africa, crossing mountains and deserts, braving ice and sea. Each step takes them farther from home, yet closer to the world they will one day shape. They reach the forests of Europe, the shores of Asia, the islands of the Pacific. They leave footprints on sand that will one day become cities. They learn to weave, to paint, to remember. In the quiet glow of a cave, someone presses a hand against the wall and blows pigment over their fingers, a red outline, delicate and human. A silent declaration. I am here. That mark still waits there today, preserved in stone and dust, the earliest memory of our shared voice. Each line and symbol, each animal drawn by torchlight, is both art and prayer, the beginning of culture, imagination, and the dream of immortality. Now breathe again, slowly. You are that same dream, carried through time. Every neuron that fires in your resting mind tonight has been shaped by millions of years of adaptation, curiosity, and survival. You are the child of every tribe, every wanderer who looked at firelight and saw meaning in its dance. As the ages pass, the ice recedes. Rivers swell and new lands awaken. Human beings begin to stay to settle where food is plenty and the seasons gentle. The rhythm of movement gives way to the rhythm of life itself, the heartbeat of home. The earth becomes our cradle once more, not just as individuals, but as a species learning to belong to a place. People begin to shape their surroundings, building shelters, storing grain, tending flocks. They watch the cycles of the moon and the stars, discovering patterns that will one day guide their calendars and rituals. And slowly, gently, the long dawn of humanity gives way to something new. The first walls are raised from clay. The first seeds are planted in soil. A different kind of fire burns now, not just for warmth, but for creation. The world is changing. Human hands, which once only gathered what the earth offered, now begin to give back, transforming landscape into legacy. Breathe in deeply, and as you exhale, imagine standing at the edge of this transformation. The last embers of the old world glow behind you. The first light of civilization rises ahead. And somewhere in between, the human spirit, patient, resilient, and dreaming, takes its next great step. The first settlements and the birth of agriculture. The earth warms. The glaciers begin their slow retreat. Rivers swell and valleys awaken with green. It is a time of transformation when the wild world, untamed for millions of years, begins to yield its secrets to the patient hands of humankind. Imagine standing on a hillside at the edge of what we now call the Fertile Crescent. The air smells of damp soil and rain. Beneath your bare feet, the land is rich and alive. Seeds spill from your palm, tumbling softly into the dirt. They disappear beneath the earth, silent, invisible, and yet within them lies everything: food, stability, time itself. In this quiet act, planting, waiting, trusting, humanity changes forever. No longer do our ancestors wander endlessly in search of game and fruit. Now they begin to shape the landscape, to stay long enough to see the seasons turn, to understand that life can be cultivated, not just found. Each day begins before dawn. The light grows gently across the horizon. People rise from small clay shelters, built low and round, their walls plastered smooth with mud and straw. They step into the cool morning, breathing the scent of fresh grain. Children carry baskets of seeds. Elders watch the skies for signs of rain. Every sound, the rustle of reeds, the distant call of birds, is part of a new rhythm, the rhythm of home. Somewhere among the valleys of what is now southeastern Turkey, a circle of stones rises from the earth. Massive, carefully carved, standing in deliberate alignment. This is Göbekli Tepe, the first known temple, older than the pyramids, older even than writing. Here, people gather not just to hunt or trade, but to worship, to remember, to wonder. The stones are engraved with animals, foxes, cranes, snakes, each image alive with sacred meaning. And though we do not know the prayers they spoke, we can feel their intent, the yearning to understand the invisible. Take a deep breath. Let your exhale carry you across millennia to another place, the ancient town of Jericho near the Jordan River. Here, mud brick homes cluster close together, forming one of the first true communities. A stone tower rises in the center, its spiral staircase worn smooth by generations of feet. Around it, the desert blooms with gardens and date palms. Water flows through irrigation channels clear, shimmering lines of life drawn by human will. Jericho's people wake and sleep to the same rhythm of cultivation and care. They grind grain into flour, bake bread in clay ovens, weave mats from reeds, and sing songs to mark the passing of the days. Each generation builds upon the last, their lives quietly layering into the soil traces of hearths, bones, and pots that will one day tell archaeologists the story of continuity. As you breathe slowly, imagine the serenity of that life, the gentle routine of tending fields and sharing meals, of shaping clay and telling stories by firelight. There are no kings here, no written records, only the simple harmony of people learning to live together. Further east, beyond the Taurus Mountains, another settlement thrives, Catalhoyuk. Its homes are packed tightly, roof to roof, like the cells of a honeycomb. There are no streets. People move across the rooftops, climbing ladders to enter their homes through openings in the ceiling. Inside, the walls are painted with red ochre, decorated with images of animals and ancestors. Shrines hold small figurines of goddesses, symbols of fertility, abundance, and the mysterious cycles of life and death. Each house is both home and temple, a sacred place of living and remembrance. Beneath the floors, generations are buried together, wrapped in woven mats, surrounded by objects of care beads, shells, and painted bowls. To live here is to dwell among the spirits of family and earth, to see existence as one continuous flow, unbroken and eternal. Now breathe deeply again. Feel how the air slows as humanity's pace slows. The restless migrations of the hunter-gatherer world begin to fade into stillness. The first calendars appear, carved into bone or stone, tracking the cycles of moon and season. The first domesticated animals graze near the edges of fields: goats, sheep, cattle. The partnership between human and nature deepens, delicate and profound. But this new life is not without its trials. With stability comes vulnerability, dependence on weather, on harvest, on cooperation. When drought strikes, hunger follows. When harvests fail, communities must endure or move again. And yet, something powerful keeps them rooted: an unspoken faith that the world will provide, that the soil will yield, that tomorrow will come. At night, the sky above these early villages glows with the same stars you see now. Our ancestors looked upward then, as you might tonight, tracing constellations, searching for meaning. The stars guided their planting, their festivals, their stories. Each bright point was both map and mystery. They gave names to the heavens, weaving tales that explained why the rains fell, why the sun returned, why life persisted. Perhaps that is when the first true dreams of civilization began, not in the fields or the hearths, but in the quiet of those nights, when people gazed at the infinite and saw patterns that echoed their own hearts. Take a slow breath in. Imagine the scent of smoke and earth. Feel the coolness of clay walls, the softness of woven mats beneath your hands. The air hums with quiet activity, the murmur of water, the distant bleating of animals, the soft laughter of children. This is the rhythm of a world discovering itself. Across the centuries, more villages appear along rivers, valleys, and fertile deltas. In each, humanity learns anew how to shape time, how to store memory. We grind grain into flour, fire clay into pots, measure days by the shadows of the sun. We learn patience, cooperation, foresight. The earth, once indifferent, becomes our partner. The wild begins to answer back to our touch. And then, from these humble settlements, from fields and hearths and riversides, the first civilizations begin to rise. Their stories, inscribed not just in memory but in stone and clay, will soon span continents and millennia. The rivers will become lifelines of human destiny. The Tigris, the Euphrates, the Nile, the Indus, the Yellow River. And from their banks, humanity will learn to build cities, to write, to rule, and to dream beyond survival. For now, though, rest in this moment between past and future. Let your breath flow like a river through the fields of early human hope. You are lying at the threshold of history, the calm before the great awakening. The stars above shimmer softly, watching as humanity's story prepares to unfold. Tomorrow, the rivers will rise, and the first civilizations will bloom beside their gentle waters. Close your eyes for a moment. The night hums with the promise of dawn. And as sleep begins to gather at the edges of your mind, you drift onward toward Mesopotamia, where the world's first great cities wait to greet the light. Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. The sun rises over a land between two rivers. To the west lies the slow, glittering curve of the Euphrates. To the east, the Tigris cuts through the plains like a line of silver. Between them stretches a world of fertile earth, brown and gold beneath the light, watered by the ancient floods that descend each year from the mountains of Anatolia. This is Mesopotamia, the first true cradle of civilization. Here, humanity begins to dream in architecture, in law, in language. Here, for the first time, the story of the world takes written form. Thousands of years have passed since the first seeds were planted in the soil of the Fertile Crescent. Small villages have grown into towns, and towns into cities. The rhythm of the seasons has become the rhythm of governance, planting, harvest, trade, worship. The rivers provide not only food, but also the power to organize, to build, to imagine permanence. Picture the city of Uruk, standing beneath the endless blue of the Mesopotamian sky. Its walls stretch wide, built from sun-baked brick, enclosing fields, homes, temples, and workshops. The streets are narrow and winding, shaded by mud brick houses with flat roofs. From a distance, you can see the ziggurat rising, a great terraced temple that climbs towards the heavens, its summit glinting in the sunlight. At its base, priests tend fires and prepare offerings. They are the intermediaries between the people and their gods, the keepers of calendars, the watchers of stars. Inside the temple complex, scribes sit cross-legged on reed mats, pressing reeds into clay tablets. Their hands move carefully, carving lines that will outlast their lives. These marks, wedges, and strokes are the earliest form of writing, cuneiform. Each tablet captures a small fragment of civilization, the count of sheep, the measure of grain, the record of a transaction, a hymn to a god. With writing, memory becomes eternal. For the first time in history, the thoughts of a living person can travel beyond their own breath, their own generation. Writing changes everything. In the market, merchants call out their wares dates: barley, fish, wool. The scent of bitumen and baked clay fills the air. Potters turn wheels of stone, shaping jars that will hold the surplus of the harvest. Bronze tools glint in the light. Children run through the courtyards, their laughter echoing between walls that have already stood for centuries. At night, the air cools and the city glows with torchlight. The ziggurat looms above, a mountain made by human hands. To the people of Uruk, it is the bridge between heaven and earth, the dwelling place of their gods. They believe that the world is filled with divine presence. Every breeze, every flood, every harvest is an act of the unseen. Their prayers are practical, rooted in survival. May the rivers rise gently, may the rains return, may the fields be kind. As you listen, imagine that ancient city alive around you. You can hear the soft clatter of looms, the trickle of irrigation channels, the chants rising at sunset. The air hums with life, with purpose. Every motion, from the drawing of water to the shaping of bricks, adds another thread to the tapestry of civilization. Across the plains, other cities flourish. Kish, Lagash, Ur, and Eridu, each a kingdom, each ruled by its own king or priest-king. Together they form Sumer, the world's first network of city-states. They trade, they quarrel, they build alliances and wage wars, all the familiar rhythms of human society, playing out for the first time. Their gods mirror their world, proud, unpredictable, often in conflict. The sky god, Enlil, lord of the air; Inanna, radiant goddess of love and war. Temples dedicated to these deities rise from the plains, decorated with colorful tiles and adorned with offerings of food, incense, and gold. At night, under starlight, the priests climb the temple stairs to read omens written in the movements of the heavens. From these sacred observations, astronomy is born. From ritual, science emerges. From the need to measure time for planting, the calendar appears. Necessity, curiosity, and reverence intertwine, forming the foundations of human knowledge. Take a moment to picture the floodplains after the rains. The rivers overflow, leaving behind a glittering layer of silt. Farmers step barefoot through the mud, guiding wooden plows pulled by oxen. They chant softly to keep rhythm as they work, their voices blending with the rustle of reeds. In the distance, a shepherd leads his flock toward higher ground, watching the changing color of the sky. The same sky that you see now, vast, eternal, indifferent, and yet intimately familiar. The world of Mesopotamia is alive with invention. Here, the wheel first turns on its wooden axle. Here, the concept of the city itself is born, a place where people gather not only to survive, but to create. Music fills the air, lyres of wood and string, drums made of hide. Poetry emerges, songs of gods and heroes, of love and longing. And from these songs will come the first great epic ever written, the Epic of Gilgamesh. It is the story of a king of Uruk who seeks immortality, a tale of friendship, loss, and the fear of death, feelings that have never left us. Though carved in clay more than 4,000 years ago, its voice is still our own. Gilgamesh walks beneath the same stars you do. He wonders what it means to be human, what it means to die, and whether anything endures beyond the dust. As time moves forward, the cities of Sumer give way to larger realms. The Akkadians rise under their ambitious ruler, Sargon of Akkad, perhaps the first emperor in history. His armies cross deserts and mountains, binding the scattered cities under one rule. The idea of empire, of unity through power, begins here. And with it, the idea of the state, of bureaucracy, of organized law. Centuries later, Hammurabi of Babylon will carve those laws into stone. The Code of Hammurabi stands tall and black, a stele of diorite covered in cuneiform script. Its words speak of justice and order, rules for trade, for marriage, for property, for punishment. It is both harsh and visionary, the first attempt to bind society through written law rather than divine whim. Above the text, Hammurabi is shown receiving the laws from Shamash, the sun god, a reminder that justice itself was seen as sacred. In the shadow of these great cities, the ordinary lives of people continue in quiet repetition. Farmers rise before dawn, craftsmen work by the light of oil lamps, and children play by the riverbanks. Their days pass gently, marked by the rhythm of the seasons and the sound of the water. Clay tablets tell us of their joys and grievances, lost donkeys, borrowed tools, declarations of love. Through them, the humanity of the ancients reaches across time, so different and yet so near. But civilizations, like rivers, rise and fall. Floods change course, wars erupt, dynasties fade. The Sumerian cities decline, new powers take their place. Babylon ascends, its hanging gardens shimmering in legend, its scholars mapping the stars and calculating eclipses. Further north, the Assyrians forge an empire of iron and ambition, their palaces adorned with reliefs of lions and battles. The cycle of creation and destruction continues, as it always has, as it always will. Even as you rest now, the soil of Mesopotamia still holds their memory, fragments of tablets, shards of pottery, broken statues buried beneath layers of earth. Archaeologists brush away the dust and uncover their words, their laws, their dreams. And as those voices return to light after thousands of years, they remind us that civilization is not a fixed monument, but a living conversation across time. Take a long, slow breath and imagine standing once more between those ancient rivers. The air is warm and still. Somewhere, a ziggurat rises against the fading sky, its summit lost in the glow of evening. Below, the lights of the city flicker like stars fallen to earth. You can almost hear the murmur of prayers, the gentle splash of water in irrigation channels, the whisper of reeds in the wind. The world turns, but this place remains the beginning of everything that followed. Writing, law, architecture, trade, governance, literature, all born here, in this land between rivers. Mesopotamia may be long gone, its empires turned to dust, yet every city that rises today carries a fragment of its design. Every alphabet, every legal code, every active record keeping traces its lineage back to those first strokes in wet clay. And so, as night deepens, the rivers of time continue to flow onward, eastward toward new lands, new peoples, new dreams. Beyond the deserts lies another world of water and light, a place where a river flows northward through endless sands. It is there that we will drift next to the banks of the Nile, where another ancient civilization awaits, its monuments standing timeless beneath the stars. The gift of the Nile, ancient Egypt. The desert stretches endlessly in every direction, a vast ocean of sand, shimmering under the weight of the sun. But cutting through this golden silence is a single thread of life, the Nile. It winds northward, slow and patient, a ribbon of silver carved into the heart of the land. For thousands of years, this river has been more than water. It is time itself. It rises, it falls, and in its steady pulse, the rhythm of a civilization is born. Each summer, the rains fall far to the south, in the highlands of Africa. The river swells and spills across its banks, flooding the fields with dark silt, rich, fertile soil that renews the earth. When the waters recede, farmers return, pressing seeds into the moist ground with bare feet. The air smells of wet clay and new beginnings. The same hands that once hunted along its shores now shape the future of Egypt. The Nile does not simply sustain life, it defines it. Villages rise along its edge like pearls strung on a thread. Boats made of papyrus glide across its calm surface, their sails catching the soft desert wind. Fishermen cast their nets beneath the morning sun. Children wade in the shallows, laughing as the water laps against their knees. To live here is to live in rhythm with the river, its flood, its retreat, its eternal promise of return. As centuries pass, these small communities grow into towns, and the towns into kingdoms. The land divides into two realms: Upper Egypt, the southern valley where the river runs narrow and swift, and Lower Egypt, the broad delta where the Nile fans out into the sea. For generations, they exist apart, each with its own rulers and gods. But one day, a king named Nama, or perhaps Menes, as later generations will call him, unites them. The double crown is placed upon his head, red for the delta, white for the valley. And from this union, Egypt as a single kingdom is born. The age of the pharaohs begins. Their power flows like the river, absolute, cyclical, divine. To their people, the pharaoh is not merely a ruler. He is the living Horus, the bridge between heaven and earth. When he dies, he becomes Osiris, lord of the afterlife, and his son takes his place, Horus reborn, the cycle renewed. Through this sacred lineage, Egypt endures not as a nation of mortals, but as a reflection of eternity. Take a slow breath and imagine the Nile at dawn. Mist rises from the water, glowing gold in the first light. In the distance, the outline of a temple appears, its columns towering above the reeds. The stone walls are covered with carvings, gods with falcon heads and lion faces, hieroglyphs winding like vines. Inside, priests move in silence, their linen robes whispering across the cool floor. They carry incense and pour milk and honey upon the altars, offerings to Ra, the sun god, who now lifts himself above the horizon. The light spills into the temple courtyard, illuminating statues that have stood for centuries. The scent of frankincense fills the air. Outside, the city stirs, workers leaving their homes, scribes opening their scrolls, markets coming alive with color and sound. This is Thebes, or perhaps Memphis, or Heliopolis, one of Egypt's beating hearts. Each city a mirror of the cosmos, ordered, harmonious, eternal. Egyptian life is built upon balance, the concept of Ma'at. It is the idea that everything in the world, from the movement of stars to the justice of kings, must remain in harmony. The pharaoh rules to maintain this balance. The Nile floods to sustain it. and even death is but a continuation of it, another passage in the cycle of existence. In workshops along the riverbank, artisans carve stone with astonishing precision. They fashion statues of deities, sarcophagi, amulets, and jewelry of gold and turquoise. Their hands move with quiet devotion, guided by the belief that beauty itself is sacred. Nearby, scribes sit in the shade, writing in the flowing lines of hieroglyphs. Each symbol is alive, not just a sound or word, but an idea, a force, a fragment of the divine. To write is to participate in creation itself. The Egyptians believed the spoken word had power, but the written word, the medunetja, the words of the gods, could preserve eternity. Through ink and reed, they captured prayers, histories, and hymns. They recorded the rise of kings, the turning of the seasons, the songs sung at harvest. Their language was not just communication, it was memory made visible. As you drift through this ancient world, imagine traveling down the Nile by boat. The water glides beneath you, reflecting the color of the sky, sometimes blue, sometimes gold, sometimes the deep violet of evening. On the western banks, the land of the dead stretches out, dotted with tombs carved into the rock. To the east lies the land of the living villages, temples, and gardens shaded by date palms. The two sides of the river mirror life and death, sunrise and sunset, always in balance. In the distance, you see them. Great stone pyramids rising from the sand, their angles catching the light of the sun. They seem impossible mountains built by human hands, monuments of stone aligned perfectly to the stars. Each block weighs tons, yet together they stand with mathematical precision, pointing unerringly to the heavens. These are not mere tombs. They are vessels of eternity, designed to preserve the pharaoh's soul, to help him ascend among the gods. Inside their hidden chambers lie treasures for the journey beyond: food, statues, gold, and sacred texts. The air inside is cool and still, carrying the faint scent of earth and stone untouched for thousands of years. The pyramids of Giza rise on the horizon like eternal sentinel. Khufu, Khafre, and Menkore, their names carved into time. Nearby, the great Sphinx gazes eastward, its face eroded yet serene. Half lion, half man, it embodies the power and wisdom of a people who built not only for themselves, but for eternity. At night, the stars wheel above these monuments, the same constellations that guided the priests of Heliopolis. They studied the heavens, not only for navigation, but for truth. The sky was their calendar, their clock, their scripture. Each star was a deity, each constellation a story. From their careful observation came the concept of time itself, the division of the year into months and days, the ordering of the universe into cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. Farther south, in the temple of Karnak, columns rise like a forest of stone, each one carved with scenes of offerings and victories, painted in colors that once burned bright beneath the sun. The hieroglyphs climb upward toward the sky, telling stories of gods and pharaohs in a language of symbols and art. When sunlight filters through the roof, it moves slowly, like water across the carvings, light flowing over memory. Here, rituals are performed each day to maintain the balance of the cosmos. Priests chant hymns written thousands of years before their birth. They pour libations, offer flowers, light lamps. To them, every action echoes through eternity, the smallest gesture as important as the greatest monument. Beyond the temples, life continues in the villages and fields. Farmers lead oxen through furrows. Women grind grain with heavy stones, bake bread and weave linen. Children learn by watching. By doing, life passes gently, generation to generation, in a cycle as predictable as the river's flow. Even the humblest worker is part of something vast, the unbroken rhythm of Egypt. In the evening, when the sun sinks and the air cools, people gather on rooftops to share food and stories. They speak of the gods of Ra's journey through the underworld each night, of Isis and Osiris, of the weighing of the heart in the hall of truth. They imagine what awaits beyond the veil of death, the field of reeds where the righteous live again in peace, surrounded by the beauty of eternal harvest. To them, life and death are not opposites. They are chapters of the same story. When a person dies, their body is prepared with reverence. Mummified, wrapped in linen, protected by amulets and prayers. The Book of the Dead is placed beside them, its spells guiding the soul through the trials of the afterlife. The heart, believed to hold the soul's truth, will one day be weighed against the feather of Ma'at. If it is light and pure, the spirit passes on. If it is heavy with wrongdoing, it is devoured by Amit, the eater of hearts. But for most, there is faith in renewal. The sun will rise again, as it always does. The Nile will flood again, as it always has. And the soul, too, will journey on, like the river flowing eternally toward the sea. Egypt's greatness endures through dynasties old, middle, and new. The kings change, the temples evolve, the language grows, yet the essence remains unchanged. Even as foreign powers come, Hyksos, Nubians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Egypt's heart continues to beat with the same rhythm. Its monuments stand unyielding against the desert wind, its wisdom carried across generations. Medicine, astronomy, architecture, and art all thrive under the watchful eyes of scribes and scholars. They map the human body with remarkable precision. They chart the stars with mathematics that will one day inspire Greek thought. They record history not as fleeting memory, but as a sacred duty, the act of preserving truth against the silence of time. As centuries pass, sand begins to reclaim what was built. Temples fall silent, statues weather under the sun, but the memory remains carved deep in stone, written in ink that still clings to the fibers of papyrus. Even when forgotten, Egypt dreams beneath the desert, waiting to be rediscovered. And one day, thousands of years later, explorers will brush away the sand and uncover the tombs of kings. They will open chambers sealed since the dawn of history. They will find gold gleaming in the darkness and names that have not been spoken in 3 millennia. Among them, the boy king, Tutankhamun, his mask radiant beneath torchlight, his eyes still calm in death. Through him, Egypt's voice will rise again, reminding the modern world that time is only ever asleep, never gone. Now, as the night deepens, picture the Nile beneath a sky of endless stars. The water glimmers softly, moving northward toward the sea. The breeze carries the scent of lotus and silt, of ancient stone still warm from the day. Somewhere, an ibis takes flight over the temples, its wings whispering across the dark. This is Egypt, the eternal dream of humanity. A civilization that saw eternity not as a wish, but as a truth woven into every sunrise. Its people built for the ages, prayed for balance, and lived as though each moment was part of forever. And in many ways, they were right. Because, as you listen now, thousands of years later, their story continues alive in memory, in language, in wonder. Let that thought rest gently in your mind. The Nile flows onward, as it always has. The stars move slowly across the sky, and time, ever patient, carries you with it forward, gently, into the next chapter of our human story. The lost cities of the Indus Valley, far to the east of Mesopotamia, beyond deserts and mountains, another world once flourished, quiet, orderly, and wise. A world of red brick and flowing water, of balance and mystery. Long before the rise of Greece or Rome, while the pyramids still gleamed beneath the Egyptian sun, a different kind of civilization was taking shape along a river called the Indus. The valley it carved stretched wide and fertile, fed by monsoon rains and Himalayan snow. Here, the people built cities, not of monuments and kings, but of calm precision streets laid out in perfect grids, drains covered with stone, wells dug deep into the earth to provide cool water through the heat of summer. They built for life, not for glory. And though much of their story is lost to time, what remains speaks softly of intelligence, harmony, and peace. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of one of these ancient cities, Harappa, or perhaps Mohenjo-daro. The air is warm and still. The river glimmers under a hazy sun, carrying silt that sparkles like powdered gold. In the distance, you hear the hum of daily life, the thud of wooden wheels, the calls of traders, the faint rhythm of hammers shaping copper and clay. Before you stretches a city of red brick. The streets run straight and wide, aligned perfectly to the cardinal directions. They are paved and drained, sloping gently so that rainwater flows away without flooding. Every house, from the grandest to the humblest, is built to fit this order, each with a private well, a bathing area, and a small courtyard where the air moves freely. In every block, you sense intention, not chaos, but care. As you walk through the city, the scent of baked earth fills the air. The walls are smooth, the corners sharp, the surfaces burnished by centuries of hands. There is no palace here, no towering ziggurat or pyramid, no monument to a single ruler. The power of this civilization lies in its design, in the quiet strength of cooperation. It is a city without boast, yet perfect in its simplicity. You pass workshops where potters spin their wheels with steady rhythm, shaping fine red pottery marked with black geometric patterns. In another street, bead makers polish carnelian and lapis lazuli, stringing them into necklaces that gleam like small constellations. Nearby, metal workers hammer bronze into tools, chisels, and ornaments. Their craft is old and patient, passed from hand to hand across generations. The air hums with gentle activity, not the noise of conquest, but of creation. Merchants lead ox-drawn carts down the wide avenues. Women wash clothes at wells, chatting softly. Children chase one another between the doorways, their laughter echoing off the brick. At night, lamps flicker behind latticed windows, casting warm light into the streets. The city sleeps lightly, like a living mind, ordered, tranquil, eternal. Take a slow breath and feel how balanced this world is. The Indus people seem to have understood something precious that civilization does not need to shout to endure. Their beauty lies in quiet precision, in small acts done perfectly, in the invisible architecture of care. And yet, their sophistication runs deep. Archaeologists have found weights and measures standardized across hundreds of miles, identical cubes of churchstone used to ensure fairness in trade. Their seals, carved with intricate animal motifs and mysterious symbols, speak of an organized system of exchange that connected faraway lands. Through these seals, their goods traveled by river and sea, reaching distant cultures in Mesopotamia and beyond. Each seal bears an animal, a bull, a unicorn-like figure, an elephant, a rhinoceros, creatures that seem half symbol, half real. And above them, lines of a script we still cannot read. 4,000 years later, its meaning remains locked away, a language of silence. No one knows what stories it holds, laws, prayers, poems, or simple records of trade. But whatever it says, it once carried the voice of a people who believed in clarity and order. The heart of Mohenjo-daro beats around its great bath, a vast sunken pool built from finely fitted bricks, sealed with bitumen to hold water. Stairs descend from each side into its depths, where water once shimmered beneath the open sky. It is not a public bath in the modern sense, nor a temple. It is something between a place of ritual, of purification, of connection. To bathe here was perhaps to renew oneself, to return to balance, to honor the flow of life symbolized by the river itself. Standing beside it, you can almost hear the water rippling, the sound echoing off the walls of the surrounding court. Priests or elders may have stood here, pouring water in offering, reciting prayers we can no longer hear. For a moment, let yourself feel that silence, a silence full of... In other parts of the city, granaries rise on high platforms, the air vents designed to keep the grain dry and cool. It is engineering born not of luxury, but of foresight, the wisdom of those who thought not only of today but of tomorrow, of generations yet unborn. They planned for stability, for resilience, for peace, and for centuries it worked. The Indus civilization stretched far and wide from the highlands of Baluchistan to the shores of Gujarat. Hundreds of towns and cities dotted the landscape, each built on the same principles of geometry and order. Even their art and symbols remained consistent across great distances, suggesting not a single empire, but a shared way of thinking, a culture bound by common ideals. Unlike many other ancient societies, there is little sign of kingship or warfare here. No armies carved into stone, no monuments to victory, no scenes of conquest. It seems the people of the Indus lived without great rulers or sprawling empires. Instead, their power lay in community, in collaboration. Their cities were republics of reason, quiet democracies of balance and design. How strange, how beautiful, that a civilization could flourish for 1,000 years without tyranny or chaos. That their greatness lay not in ambition, but in harmony. It suggests a truth easy to forget, that progress need not always roar. It can hum gently, like the rhythm of hands shaping clay. Yet nothing lasts forever. Somewhere, something changes. The rivers begin to shift, perhaps through earthquake, perhaps through climate. The floods grow erratic, the monsoons falter, fields dry, and trade routes fade into silence. Cities that once thrived become still. The people, patient and wise, move away not in panic, but in acceptance. They scatter into smaller communities, carrying fragments of their knowledge wherever they go. Archaeologists find no evidence of sudden destruction, no burned cities or mass graves. The Indus people seem to have dissolved back into the earth as gently as they rose from it. Their civilization ends not in fire, but in silence. A soft fading, like the evening tide retreating from the shore. Thousands of years later, travelers will walk among their ruins, unaware of what once was. They will see bricks scattered like dry leaves, streets filled with sand, walls half swallowed by dust. And then, in the modern age, explorers and scholars will unearth them again. The world will learn their names: Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Lothal, Kalibangan. Their symmetry and grace will astonish those who study them. Their silence will challenge us to listen more deeply to what endures when words are gone. The Indus civilization remains one of history's most profound mysteries. No one knows their kings, their gods, or their stories. We do not know their language, their songs, their faces. And yet, we know them through what they built, through their order, their fairness, their devotion to clean water, measured weights, and peaceful coexistence, through the evidence of care. Take a breath, slowly. Imagine walking again through their empty streets. The walls rise on either side, red and sun-warmed. A breeze moves gently through the ruins. You can almost hear the echo of footsteps, the whisper of 1,000 lives that once moved here in quiet purpose. Though their voices are gone, their intentions remain, preserved in brick and symmetry. Above you, the evening sky deepens to violet. The river reflects the first light of stars. Somewhere, unseen, a night bird calls. And in that sound is the truth of all civilization, that everything built, no matter how great or small, eventually returns to stillness. But even stillness can speak. As the night settles over the valley, the last lamps go out. The air cools, the city sleeps, and time drifts onward, flowing eastward, toward another ancient world yet to awaken. Beyond the mountains, along the banks of another great river, a new civilization begins to stir, one that will endure for millennia, shaping the destiny of philosophy, art, and empire. Its poets will sing, its warriors will march, and its thinkers will seek harmony in heaven and on earth. You turn your gaze toward the rising sun, toward the land of dragons and sages, of silk and bronze, of mountains and mist. The next chapter of humanity is waiting in the dawn beyond the Himalayas. And so, with the quiet rhythm of the Indus still echoing in your thoughts, you drift onward toward the Middle Kingdom. The Middle Kingdom's ancient China. The sun rises pale and white over a vast, mist-covered plain. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of damp earth and distant rain. From the foothills of the Kunlun and the mountains of Tibet, two great rivers cut their way eastward, the Huanghe, the Yellow River, and the Changjiang, the Yangtze. For thousands of years they have been the lifeblood of a civilization so enduring, so continuous, that its story feels less like a series of empires and more like a single, unbroken breath. Along the banks of the Yellow River, early farmers plant millet and sorghum in the dark silt left by floods. Their villages are small circles of thatched houses built from packed earth, but their culture already shows a sense of design, of patience, of ritual. Clay pots painted with spirals and waves speak of an aesthetic older than writing, a desire to make beauty out of necessity. In these quiet settlements, the Chinese world begins to take form. Archaeologists will one day call them the Yangshao and Longshan peoples. They leave behind tools of polished stone, ornaments of jade, and bones etched with markings not yet words, but symbols of meaning. In their patterns, we see the seed of something that will grow into the written language of a fifth of humanity. The floods of the Yellow River are both generous and cruel. Each year, the water brings nourishment and destruction. To live here is to live in rhythm with catastrophe. The people learn to build dikes, canals, and storage pits. They cooperate, laboring together to control the river's moods. And from this shared labor emerges government, the idea that order can be shaped by human will. Legends tell of a hero called Yu the Great, who tamed the floods by carving channels through mountains and dredging the riverbeds. For his wisdom, he became the first emperor of the Xia dynasty, the earliest kingdom in Chinese memory. Whether Yu was a man or a myth does not matter. His story is true in spirit. It tells of the bond between ruler and river, between humanity and nature, the first lesson of China's philosophy, harmony. The Xia give way to the Shang. Bronze furnaces glow in their cities, casting vessels of astonishing detail. Dragons curling around cups, thunder patterns swirling across bells and basins. These are not merely works of art. They are instruments of ceremony, used to honor ancestors and the unseen forces that govern heaven and earth. In the royal courts, diviners heat the shoulder blades of oxen or the shells of turtles until they crack. The lines are read as messages from the spirits, the earliest form of Chinese writing. The questions carved beside them still survive, sharp as the day they were etched. Will the harvest be good? Should we wage war? Will the king's child be born healthy? From these cracks and symbols, the written word of China is born. The Shang kings rule from cities of rammed earth walls and timber palaces. Chariots rumble through their streets, pulled by horses newly arrived from the western steppes. Music fills the night flutes of bone, drums of hide, and bronze bells tuned to the scale that will define Chinese sound for millennia. The air smells of smoke and wine and ritual. Every act, from a meal to a sacrifice, follows pattern and hierarchy. The living and the dead are bound in endless exchange. The ancestors give guidance, the descendants give remembrance. When the Shang fall, the Zhou dynasty rises in their place. It is the beginning of an age that will shape not only China, but the moral imagination of the world. The Zhou claim that heaven itself has chosen them to rule the mandate of heaven. A ruler is just only as long as he governs with virtue. Should he become cruel or corrupt, heaven withdraws its favor, and the people have the right to rebel. It is a theology of balance, a politics of ethics. Every dynasty that follows will rise and fall by this invisible decree. The Zhou age is long 8 centuries of growth, fragmentation, and thought. Iron replaces bronze, plows cut deeper into the soil, population swells, cities expand, and the written language spreads beyond the royal court. Scholars begin to wonder not only how to serve heaven, but how to understand humanity itself. From this questioning grows the golden age of Chinese philosophy. Confucius walks the dusty roads between states, teaching that harmony begins within the heart. To rule the state, he says, one must first cultivate the self. His world is one of constant war princes feuding, armies marching, yet his vision is of peace built on kindness, respect, and ritual. His followers record his sayings on bamboo strips, and in time they will guide emperors. Not far from him in spirit, though opposite in tone, lives Laozi, the old master of the Tao. He teaches that wisdom lies not in striving, but in yielding, in flowing like water, in acting without forcing. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao, he says. And in those words, he leaves a silence that has echoed for 25 centuries. Between Confucius and Laozi, the Chinese mind finds its balanced duty and spontaneity, order and freedom, yin and yang. As you breathe slowly, imagine the landscape that shaped these thoughts. Terraced hills carved with rice paddies shine under the sun like mirrors. Bamboo groves whisper in the wind. Rivers move like threads of silver through valleys where farmers sing to the rhythm of the seasons. This is a world in which philosophy and daily life are the same, planting and harvesting as moral acts, breathing itself a form of prayer. The centuries turn. From the chaos of warring states, a single power rises, the Qin. Their king, Qin Shi Huang, unites the 7 kingdoms through conquest and reform. He standardizes writing, coinage, and measurement. He orders roads to link the empire from sea to steppe. To protect his northern frontier, he joins the old regional walls into one vast barrier, the first form of the Great Wall. Stones and earth stretch across deserts and mountains. A line so long it can only be understood by walking it. It is both protection and proclamation. The empire has boundaries, yet within those boundaries, all under heaven are one. But unity comes at a price. The emperor's will is iron, his control absolute. Scholars who oppose him are silenced, their books burned, their words scattered like ash. And yet, from that fire, China's idea of eternity survives. When Qin Shi Huang dies, his body is laid to rest in a tomb guarded by thousands of life-sized warriors of clay, each one unique, each face different, each hand carved with care. They stand watch still, silent beneath the soil, their bronze spears darkened by time. After the Qin falls, the Han dynasty rises gentle where the Qin were harsh, enduring where they were brief. The Han brings stability, art, and science. Paper is invented, silk weaving perfected, medicine refined. Astronomers map the stars, noting comets and eclipses with mathematical precision. Historians compile the first great chronicles of the empire, recording the deeds of kings and the customs of commoners alike. Through their words, China becomes self-aware, a civilization conscious of its own continuity. The Han open roads that lead westward through deserts and mountains, the Silk Road. Along it travel merchants, monks and messengers. Silk, jade and porcelain flow outward. Horses, glass and ideas flow in. From India comes Buddhism, carried by monks who cross the high passes with scriptures wrapped in cloth. In its quiet teachings, the Chinese find a new way to think about suffering and compassion, life and illusion. Temples rise, bells ring in mountain valleys, and statues of the Buddha smile in caves lit by oil lamps. Evening falls over the empire. In the capital of Chang'an, lanterns glow along broad avenues. The city is a perfect square, its gates aligned with the cardinal points, its streets alive with poets, traders and scholars. Caravans arrive from the west, bearing spices and stories. The air smells of sandalwood and ink. In quiet courtyards, students study by candlelight, copying the analects or composing poems about the moon reflected in a river. And so the rhythm continues, dynasties rising and falling like the tides. The Tang bring art and openness, their poets writing verses that still breathe with life. The bright moon lifts over the sea. We share this moment, though we are apart. The Song bring innovation, gunpowder, the compass, the first printed books. The Mongols storm in from the north, fierce and foreign, yet even they are absorbed by the vastness of Chinese culture. The Ming restore native rule, building walls, palaces, and fleets that reach the shores of Africa. The Qing extend the realm to its greatest breadth, ruling until the dawn of the modern age. Through it all, the pattern endures order, chaos, renewal. Each generation builds upon the bones of the last. The language changes but remains the same. The philosophies evolve but never vanish. The people of the Middle Kingdom live always between heaven and earth, between duty and dream. At night, the Great Wall snakes across the mountains, its stones glowing faintly in the moonlight. Farmers sleep in villages beside the same rivers their ancestors once feared and tamed. Crickets sing in the fields. The wind moves through the bamboo like a whisper of history. China sleeps, but its memory does not. It breathes beneath the surface, quiet and endless. The rivers flow on yellow, blue, eternal carrying silt, stories and time itself toward the eastern sea. Beyond that horizon, new lands wait, and other civilizations rise beneath different stars. But the essence of this one, its patience, its balance, its faith in endurance will ripple outward forever, shaping the world in ways unseen. Rest here for a moment. Feel the calm that comes from order, the peace that comes from continuity. The world turns slowly, and the Middle Kingdom turns with it, steady as the flow of its rivers. From the mist of dynasties, the human stories emerge, the quiet lives that form the heartbeat beneath the splendor of emperors. In the countryside, the farmer rises before dawn. He listens to the sound of water moving through the paddies, the croak of frogs, the faint whisper of wind among the rice stalks. He knows each cloud, each shadow, each turn of season. His life is humble, but it touches the same pattern as the heavens, the endless repetition that gives shape to time. He tills the soil not only for food, but for continuity. In the town nearby, the potter kneads his clay, the calligrapher sharpens his brush. Each stroke of ink carries intention. Each bowl or vase bears the memory of touch. The craftsman's work is not signed, yet it endures. His art, born of patience, outlives his name like so much of China itself. In the scholar's garden, bamboo bends in the wind, a symbol of integrity. He reads aloud from yellowed scrolls, reciting poetry that speaks of mountains, rivers, and the quiet longing of the human heart. For the Chinese scholar, nature is not separate from self. A mountain is not just rock, it is endurance. A river is not only water, it is wisdom. To write of the natural world is to write of one's soul. The painter grinds his inkstone and lifts his brush. With a single stroke, a bamboo forest appears sparse, graceful, alive. He paints not to copy what he sees, but to reveal what is eternal within it. Each brushstroke is a meditation, a philosophy in motion. The white space, the unpainted, is as important as the ink itself. In that space, the viewer finds silence, breath, reflection. At night, in cities glowing with lantern light, music drifts from courtyards and tea houses. Strings and flutes blend in melodies older than memory. The notes rise and fall like conversation between moon and earth. Poets gather under willow trees to share verses and wine. They speak of love and exile, of friendship and loss. Their words, soft as rain, will travel through centuries to come, finding voices in places they never dreamed existed. In the monasteries, monks chant beneath the echoing curves of tiled roofs. Incense drifts upward like thin smoke of dreams. They copy sutras with brush and ink, each letter an act of devotion. Some meditate facing the wall for years, seeking enlightenment in stillness. Others walk the roads as teachers, carrying peace wherever they go. They remind the restless world that all things, dynasties, desires, and even suffering are impermanent. Outside, the seasons turn again. Snow falls over the northern plains. Cherry blossoms open in the south. The farmers return to their fields. The children learn to read. The empire renews itself, not through conquest, but through the quiet persistence of ordinary lives. The Chinese understanding of time is not linear, but circular. The past does not vanish. It returns in cycles, refined and remembered. When new dynasties rise, they look backward to seek legitimacy from ancient ways. When scholars innovate, they honor tradition as foundation. This reverence for continuity becomes the soul of Chinese civilization. The ability to change without breaking, to evolve without forgetting. Even in decline, the spirit of the Middle Kingdom endures. When foreign invaders come, they conquer the land, but not the heart. Each new ruler learns the language, adopts the customs, bows to the rhythm of the culture that absorbs them. It is said that China conquers her conquerors not by the sword, but by civilization itself. Imagine the Great Wall again under the moon. Its stones gleam pale against the dark hills, stretching farther than sight. At its watchtowers, fires once burned to signal approaching armies. Now, centuries later, the fires are gone, and only the wind remains whistling through the cracks, whispering names long forgotten. Each stone is a memory, each silence a story. The river valleys below still glow with life. Fishermen set lanterns on small boats and drift out under the stars. Each light floats gently, reflected in the black water like a fragment of the heavens come down to rest. From afar, it looks as if the river itself has become a sky, as though the boundary between earth and cosmos has dissolved, just as it does in the Chinese mind. For here, heaven and humanity are not separate realms. They are mirrors of one another, bound by the same rhythm of breath and return. The teachings of Confucius, Laozi, and the Buddha weave through every aspect of life, from the design of gardens to the tone of speech, from family honor to the structure of government. Harmony remains the highest aim. Harmony between ruler and subject, parent and child, nature and mind. In that harmony lies peace, not the stillness of emptiness, but the balance of opposites held in quiet tension. When you listen closely, you can still hear the pulse of that harmony. It sounds like a river flowing through the dark. It feels like silk between your fingers. It moves like ink across a page. And though millennia have passed, its echo continues in every thought that values patience over haste, reflection over noise, wisdom over victory. As dawn returns, the fog lifts from the valleys. The mountains glow in soft light. their peaks veiled in cloud. Somewhere below, the Yellow River winds eastward, carrying silt, stories, and the memory of a civilization that has never ceased to dream. Beyond its mouth lies the open sea, the path to other continents, other worlds. From its shores, traders once sailed south to India, west to Persia, east to islands where the sun first rises. The Chinese world touched all others, and in turn was changed by them, yet always remained itself, calm at the center of the turning world. Now let your thoughts drift with that current. Let the image of the Great Wall fade into mist. The sound of the rivers grow distant, the lights of the lanterns dim until only starlight remains. China rests, its story complete for now, a vast landscape of time and meaning. And as it dreams beneath the endless sky, the winds of history carry us farther west again, toward lands of mountains and seas, of marble and myth. Beyond the deserts and the steppes, across the restless waters of the Aegean and the Mediterranean, another world begins to shimmer in the dawn, one of philosophers and sculptors, of warriors and poets, of democracy and empire. The next chapter of our journey awaits there, among temples of stone and the voices of the ancients. The Bronze Age, Mediterranean, and the Age of Heroes. The wind shifts westward. The scent of the eastern mountains fades, replaced by the dry warmth of another world, a land of stone and olive, of salt and sea. The Mediterranean lies before you, a vast mirror of light stretching to every horizon. Its waters have carried the dreams of humanity for as long as people have gazed at the horizon and wondered what lies beyond it. Here, civilization takes a new shape, scattered islands and rugged coasts instead of rivers and plains. Where Mesopotamia and Egypt found order in the cycles of water and soil, the Mediterranean peoples learned to build their lives upon uncertainty, the rhythm of waves, the tempests of trade and war, the songs of the wind itself. In this restless sea, cultures will rise like tides, crash and vanish, leaving only shards of pottery and the whisper of legend. Picture an island rising from the blue Crete, its mountains soft with olive trees and wildflowers. This is the home of the Minoans, one of the first great maritime civilizations. Their ships are swift, their harbors busy with trade. They bring copper from Cyprus, tin from Anatolia, gold from Egypt, and fine pottery to every shore. In their cities, art flows like water frescoes of dolphins leaping through waves, women in bright robes dancing among lilies, bulls painted in motion and power. Knossos, their capital, is a maze of corridors and courts, stairways and storerooms. No walls defend it, for the Minoans trust the sea more than stone. Their strength lies in connection, a web of ports and merchants, sailors and artisans, each bound by the rhythm of trade. They build with light and color, not conquest. Their palace walls glow with red and blue, their floors are cool with polished stone. In its center lies a courtyard where, legend says, acrobats vaulted over bulls in ritual dance a celebration of life, danger, and grace. Take a slow breath. You can almost hear the distant sound of drums, the faint rhythm of feet upon the earth, the laughter of people at festival. The air smells of wine and honey, of the sea carried inland on warm breeze. This is a civilization that loved beauty, that measured wealth not by monuments, but by the art of living well. But across the sea, the world begins to change. The Minoans' trading partners grow ambitious. In the rocky hills of mainland Greece, a new power awakens the Mycenaeans. They are warriors and builders, their palaces fortified with massive walls of stone. Their kings wear gold masks and command armies that sail across the Aegean. They borrow from the Minoans their writing, their gods, their art, but temper it with iron will and restless courage. From their halls, the first echoes of Greek legend begin to sound. Their cities, Mycenae, Tiryns, Pylos rise on the high ground, watching the valleys below. Within their walls, craftsmen shape bronze into blades and helmets, while scribes record inventories on clay tablets in a script called Linear B, the ancestor of Greek writing. Outside, farmers tend olives and vines. Shepherds guide flocks through stony pastures. Each season, ships leave their harbors bound for Crete, Egypt, and the Levant, carrying oil, wool, and ambition. These are the people who will give birth to the heroes of myth. In their stories, sung long after their cities fall, names like Agamemnon, Achilles, and Odysseus will rise from memory. The poet who records them will call his tale the Iliad, and the world will never forget it. But for now, these warriors are still flesh and blood, their glory measured, not in verse, but in the clang of bronze and the smoke of burning citadels. As the centuries turn, the Bronze Age reaches its height, a network of kingdoms stretching from Greece to Egypt, from Anatolia to Mesopotamia. Ships move constantly across the sea, carrying goods, stories, and ideas. The world feels connected, vibrant, alive. And then suddenly, it collapses. No one knows exactly why. Perhaps drought, perhaps invasion, perhaps the trembling of the earth itself. Around 1200 BCE, the great cities of the Bronze Age begin to burn. Palaces fall, trade routes vanish, scripts are forgotten. The Minoans disappear beneath the ash of Santorini's volcano. Mycenae's gates stand broken. Hattusa, the capital of the Hittites, lies silent. Even mighty Egypt falters. For centuries afterward, people will speak of the Sea Peoples, mysterious raiders who came from nowhere and left only ruin behind them. But the truth is more complex, more human. The end of an age when the world grew too vast, too intertwined, and finally broke beneath its own weight. Take a breath. Imagine walking through one of those abandoned cities now. The air is dry, the wind carrying only the cry of birds. Broken pottery crunches beneath your feet. Vines climb over fallen stones. Somewhere in the ruins, you find a fragment of a fresco, a dolphin, forever leaping through a sea that no longer exists. Civilization, it seems, sleeps once more. Yet, even in the silence, seeds remain. Across the Aegean, small villages rebuild. They plow new fields, shape new tools, tell old stories around the fire. And in those stories, the memory of the age that was refuses to die. They speak of kings and heroes, of battles and journeys, of gods who walk among mortals. They pass these tales from mouth to mouth, generation to generation, until centuries later they are gathered into poems. Through those poems, the past is reborn, myth becoming memory, memory becoming history. The world enters a new dawn. In Greece, the alphabet returns, borrowed from Phoenician traders. With it comes a new power, the ability to record not only trade but thought. From scattered villages rise the polis city-states of stone and spirit. Athens, Sparta, Corinth, each a small world unto itself, each bound by common language and gods, yet fiercely independent in rule. They are heirs to the forgotten Bronze Age, but their vision is new. They look not only to the past, but to the mind. Here, philosophy is born. Here, democracy takes its first hesitant steps. Here, the idea of the individual, the thinking, reasoning person, emerges from the chorus of myth. The Greeks look at the stars and ask not what the gods intend, but what the universe is made of. They look at themselves and ask not only how to live, but what it means to be good. In this land of rocky hills and restless minds, humanity discovers reflection. Yet the world of heroes never truly dies. Their stories remain reminders that courage and tragedy are woven together, that greatness often comes with loss. The poets sing of Troy and of homecoming, of gods jealous and kind. Their words travel across time like ships across the sea, their sails filled with the wind of memory. Now let your thoughts rest on that sea for a moment. Its waves move softly under moonlight, silver and endless. From shore to shore, you can almost hear the echo of oars, the hum of ancient songs. The Mediterranean still holds all these stories of kings and merchants, of peace and war, of ruin and rebirth. It is, and always has been, the sea of human connection. And as the night deepens, the tide of history turns once more. Empires will rise upon these waters, first Greece, then Rome, then countless others. But for now, the age of heroes fades into legend, and the stars above burn bright, the same stars that guided those early sailors through the dark. Somewhere beyond the western horizon, another shore waits, a land of philosophers and sculptors, of temples and theatre, of democracy and dream. The journey continues, carried by the eternal rhythm of civilization, by the quiet breath of time itself. The classical civilizations, Greece, Persia, and Rome. The light of a new age spreads slowly across the Mediterranean. The long silence that followed the fall of the Bronze Age begins to stir with voices once more. Villages become cities. Fragments of memory become culture again. From scattered settlements, humanity gathers its courage, and from the ashes of myth, civilization rises into reason. It begins in a place of stone and sea, the land we call Greece. Here the mountains cut the earth into small valleys and islands, each isolated, each fierce in its independence. No broad river unites these people. They are bound instead by water and by words by the sea that carries them to one another, and by the language that shapes their shared imagination. Everywhere, the evidence of rebirth appears. Pottery turned on new wheels, shrines rebuilt upon ancient ruins, songs once sung in fireside memory, now carved into alphabet. The Greeks learn writing again, this time with letters simple and clear, borrowed from the Phoenicians who sailed through their harbors. Through these letters, they find a way to remember their own awakening. They begin to tell stories of gods who resemble themselves, passionate, flawed, luminous. Zeus, Athena, Apollo, Artemis. Their divine world is not distant, but human, filled with love and anger, jealousy and beauty. Through these myths, they make sense of existence, but soon they go further. They begin to ask why. The Greek mind turns inward. In the city of Miletus, on the coast of Asia Minor, thinkers watch the sea and wonder what lies beneath it. Thales believes that everything is made of water. Anaximander imagines an infinite substance without beginning or end. These are small ideas at first, humble as ripples, yet they are the first attempts to describe the world not through gods, but through nature. It is the dawn of philosophy. Take a slow breath and imagine that coast. The air smells of salt and pine. Waves roll gently against the rocks. You can almost hear those early thinkers speaking softly among themselves, their words carried by the wind. They are not priests, not rulers, just men curious enough to ask. Their courage is quiet, but its echo will reach all ages. As centuries pass, the Greek world grows colonies spreading across the sea, from Asia Minor to Sicily and beyond. Everywhere, small city-states bloom. Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Thebes. Each with its own laws, its own gods, its own vision of life. Yet all share one dream, that the measure of all things is the human being. In Athens, that dream becomes flesh. Here democracy is born fragile, imperfect, and astonishing. Citizens gather in open air to speak and decide. Ideas move like wind between voices. They debate law, justice, art, and duty beneath the sun. Freedom is not a gift here. It is a practice, a discipline of thought. From this soil of argument and curiosity, art flowers. The sculptor's hand finds balance between realism and ideal. Marble becomes muscle, stone becomes life. Temples rise, not as tombs, but as expressions of proportion and harmony. The Parthenon stands above the city, like a thought made visible, every line calculated, every angle tuned to perfection, yet all appearing effortless. At night, the city hums with words. Playwrights fill the theatres with tragedy and laughter. Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, Aristophanes. Their stories wrestle with fate, pride, mercy. Each play a mirror held to the human soul, each chorus a reminder that wisdom is born through suffering. Even the audience participates. In watching tragedy, they are purified. Catharsis, they call it the cleansing of emotion through understanding. And still the thinkers ask. Socrates walks barefoot through the marketplace, questioning merchants and generals alike. What is virtue? He asks. What is justice? He claims ignorance, yet his ignorance illuminates others. He believes that truth lives in dialogue, that wisdom begins with humility. His life ends in poison, but his method endures a path of questioning that will shape the mind of the world. His student Plato builds a world of ideas invisible, eternal forms behind all visible things. Above them all shines the good, like the sun beyond the cave. His disciple Aristotle brings the heavens to earth again, observing plants, animals, motion, logic. Between them, the Greek mind discovers both dream and reason, both vision and evidence. Philosophy becomes a compass for civilization. Beyond the Aegean, another empire watches. To the east, across deserts and mountains, lies Persia vast, ordered, majestic. Where Greece is a chorus of city-states, Persia is a single resonant chord. It stretches from the Aegean to the Indus, from the steppes to the sea. Its roads run straight and long. Its capitals gleam with gardens and palaces. Here, empire is an art. Cyrus the Great founds it not by destruction, but by mercy. He conquers yet allows others to live as themselves. Peoples of many tongues and faiths find a place within his realm. He frees the Jews from Babylonian captivity, earning their blessing. He calls himself King of the four corners of the world, yet rules with restraint. His empire is a network of cooperation, bound by tolerance as much as by might. After him comes Darius, the organizer, who divides the empire into satrapies, provinces ruled by governors bound to law. He builds the royal road, 1,500 miles of stone and dust, along which couriers ride from Susa to Sardis. Messages cross continents in a matter of days. Neither snow nor rain, nor heat nor darkness, they say, can stay these messengers from their appointed course. The world grows smaller, more connected. At Persepolis, Darius builds a city for ceremony and remembrance. Columns rise like forests of stone. Reliefs depict envoys from every land bringing tribute. There are no scenes of battle here, only order, a vision of harmony through governance. Religion too seeks balance. The prophet Zarathustra teaches of one God, Ahura Mazda, and the eternal struggle between truth and falsehood. In his words, we hear the early chords of later faiths: light against darkness, choice against chaos. For a time, Persia seems invincible. Its armies stretch from horizon to horizon. Its ships darken the seas. But history's tide is never still. From the west comes resistance small, divided yet driven by belief. The Greeks rise together, their fragile freedom tested by empire's weight. At Marathon, they meet the Persians in battle. Athens stands nearly alone, its soldiers farmers and potters more than warriors. But they hold their ground, their phalanx a wall of will. When the Persians retreat, a runner carries the news to the city, collapsing after one last breath. We have won. The victory becomes legend, not for conquest, but for courage. Yet Persia returns, greater than before. Xerxes marches with an army vast as sand. Cities fall, temples burn, even Athens itself is reduced to ash. But at Salamis, among the narrow straits, the Greek fleet strikes back. Triremes crash through the enemy line, oars flash in sunlight. The sea becomes a forge of destiny. When dawn rises, the invincible empire retreats, and freedom survives another day. Take a breath and picture that dawn. The waves are calm again. Smoke drifts across the water. Somewhere in the distance, a singer begins to compose a song not of kings, but of citizens who refuse to kneel. This is the Greek inheritance, that liberty is worth suffering for, that thought and courage belong to all. The Persian Empire endures, evolving under wise kings, but its focus turns eastward toward the heartlands of Asia, where trade and tolerance sustain it for centuries. In the west, Greece grows restless. Its city-states, once united, turn against one another. Athens and Sparta clash in wars that drain their strength. The dream of democracy falters under the weight of pride. The philosophers grow silent. The theatres darken. The glory that was Greece begins to fade. But beyond the mountains of Macedonia, another figure rises, a young king with eyes like fire, who has read Homer and carries a dagger carved with myth. Alexander. He dreams of uniting the world as Achilles' heir, not through destruction, but through destiny. He gathers his armies and marches east, across the Hellespont into Asia. He defeats Darius's successors, seizes Babylon, crosses deserts, climbs mountains, and reaches the edge of India. Everywhere he goes, he founds cities called Alexandria, seeds of Greek thought planted in foreign soil. Philosophy, art, and language travel with him, blending with Persian wisdom, Egyptian science, Indian spirituality. For a brief, brilliant moment, the world becomes one classroom, one dream. When Alexander dies at 32, his empire fractures, but the exchange he began never ceases. Greek culture spreads through the east. Persian ideas flow west. In the fusion of these worlds, in their art, their science, their politics, the next civilization will find its roots. Far away across the sea, another city is growing. Built on 7 hills beside the Tiber River, ruled first by kings, then by the people themselves. Its symbol is the eagle, its motto, Senatus Populusque Romanus, the Senate and people of Rome. What begins as a humble settlement of shepherds will soon become the greatest empire the world has ever known. And so the torch passes once again. The wisdom of Greece, the order of Persia, the ambition of countless ancestors all flow now toward Rome, where the next chapter of civilization awaits. The sun climbs higher over the hills of Latium. Below it, the Tiber River glints like molten glass. From its banks rises the city of Rome, at first nothing more than wooden huts and mud walls, then slowly brick and marble, arches and columns, aqueducts and roads. Each century adds another layer, until the city itself becomes a living memory of ambition. Legend says Rome was founded by twins Romulus and Remus, raised by a she-wolf beside the river. Like all great myths, it carries truth, not in fact, but in meaning, that Rome is born of struggle and survival, of nurture by something fierce and wild. From the beginning, the Romans believe that greatness must be earned through endurance. In the early days, they are ruled by kings, Etruscan rulers who teach them the art of building and ceremony. But the Romans, proud and impatient, throw off monarchy. They create instead a republic. 2 consuls sharing power, a senate of elders guiding them, assemblies of citizens choosing their laws. No single person may rule unchallenged. For the first time since Athens, governance becomes a conversation rather than a command. Listen to the rhythm of the Roman Republic. Its heart beats in debate, in discipline, in law. While Greece sought wisdom, Rome seeks order. The 12 tables are carved in bronze for all to see, ensuring that justice cannot hide behind privilege. From this foundation will grow the legal systems of nations yet unborn. But Rome is restless. Its fields cannot feed its hunger. Its people are born for conquest. They march first across Italy, binding the peninsula with roads and alliances. Then they look outward toward Carthage, the great Phoenician power across the sea. The two cities clash in wars so vast that even now their names echo, the Punic Wars. Carthage commands the waves, Rome commands persistence. For 20 years their armies bleed each other dry. Hannibal, Carthage's general, crosses the Alps with elephants, a vision of terror and genius. He wins battle after battle, yet Rome refuses to yield. In time, Rome learns from defeat, rebuilds its fleets, and strikes back across the sea. When Carthage finally falls, its ashes mix with salt. Its memory becomes warning and legend. Take a moment to breathe in the stillness that follows destruction. Across the Mediterranean, Rome's shadow lengthens. Greece falls under its influence. Egypt bows before its legions. Persia, long divided, yields its western provinces to the eagle's wings. The world begins to turn in Roman time. Their legions move like machinery, disciplined, relentless. Each soldier carries not only weapons, but the weight of empire. Where they go, roads follow, and with roads come trade, language, law. Rome does not merely conquer, it connects. Its engineers carve tunnels through mountains, bridge rivers with stone, build aqueducts that carry water across miles of desert. Their work is precise, their purpose enduring. Walk with them for a moment in your imagination. The dust rises beneath sandals. The sun burns on bronze helmets. Standards gleam with the letters SPQR. Behind the lines of marching men, carts creak under the weight of supplies. Scribes record inventories, and surveyors mark distances that will one day become milestones along every Roman road. Those roads, straight unbending, are arteries of empire. Merchants travel them. Scholars, pilgrims, and armies follow the same paths. A letter written in Gaul can reach Syria within weeks. The empire hums with movement. Its language, Latin, spreads like a tide, carrying words that will survive even when Rome itself does not. Back in the capital, the forum is alive with voices. Senators in white togas argue beneath the open sky. Merchants call out prices. Priests carry sacrifices to the temples. The air smells of olive oil and incense, of marble dust and smoke. At night, torches flicker on statues of gods who look increasingly human. Their Greek names blending with Roman ones. Zeus becomes Jupiter, Athena becomes Minerva, Aphrodite becomes Venus. The old myths shift, but do not fade. They adapt as the city itself adapts. Beneath the surface, though, tension grows. The Republic expands faster than its ideals. Wealth pours in from conquest, but it pools in the hands of a few. Farmers lose their land, slaves fill the fields. Politicians promise reform, generals promise glory. The balance of shared power tilts. Into this turmoil steps Julius Caesar, soldier, writer, visionary. He crosses the Rubicon River with his legions, defying the Senate's command. Civil war follows, swift and bloody. When it ends, the Republic lies broken. Caesar rules alone, dictator in all but name. He dreams of uniting the empire under mercy and law, but envy and fear surround him. On the Ides of March, in the Senate itself, knives flash in the light. The man who would be king falls at the feet of Pompey's statue, and with him falls the illusion of the old republic. Yet from the chaos, order returns in a new form. Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, the man history will call Augustus, takes power not as tyrant, but as savior. He names himself Princeps, the first citizen, and cloaks absolute authority in the language of duty. Under his reign, the empire finds peace. Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For 200 years, the known world prospers under its protection. Imagine walking through Rome during Augustus's time. Marble gleams where brick once stood. Fountains sparkle in the sunlight. The Colosseum has not yet risen, but amphitheaters already echo with laughter and applause. Poets write of love and empire. Virgil, Ovid, Horace. In Virgil's Aeneid, Rome finds its sacred narrative, a destiny born from the ashes of Troy, guided by the gods toward eternal order. Meanwhile, in distant provinces, cities flourish: Alexandria with its library and lighthouse, Antioch, Corinth, Ephesus. In each, cultures blend: Greek art, Egyptian craft, Roman law. The empire becomes a mosaic of languages and beliefs, all connected by road and coin, by architecture and aspiration. Take a slow breath. Picture an evening in this vast world. From Spain to Syria, the lamps are lit. Merchants close their stalls. Soldiers polish their armor. Philosophers debate beneath porticos. The empire stretches beyond sight. Yet each citizen feels its presence in the stability of currency, the security of roads, the rhythm of law. It is as if the world has found a single heartbeat. And yet, even the most perfect rhythm must one day falter. At its edges, Rome meets resistance in forests of Germany, in deserts of Parthia. Beyond its borders live peoples who value freedom more than order. The empire learns that walls cannot contain eternity. But for now, in this moment of golden light, Rome stands unchallenged. Its legions guard frontiers that run from the Atlantic to the Euphrates. Its cities glitter beneath the stars. Its thinkers study medicine and astronomy. Its engineers raise domes and bridges that will defy time. Its people, of every color and language, call themselves Roman. The dream of universality has for an instant come true. Night settles over the empire. From Britain's mist to Egypt's dunes, torches flicker along the roads. The Pax Romana continues, a long exhale of peace. The empire hums with quiet energy, the sound of carts on stone, the murmur of Latin spoken in markets from Gaul to Judea. In the capital, Augustus has passed, but his model endures. One emperor follows another, some wise, some cruel, all bound to the weight of Rome. The machinery of government moves with the precision of an army. Census, taxation, supply. Grain ships from Africa feed 1 million mouths. Aqueducts deliver rivers to thirsty hills. The city that was once clay now gleams like marble beneath the sun. Temples rise in honor of gods who have crossed oceans and deserts to find a home here. The Pantheon, with its perfect dome, gathers them all beneath one roof, a circle of light opening to the heavens. Stand there in your imagination. Marble cool beneath your feet, air heavy with incense, the sound of footsteps echoing like waves. Through that oculus overhead, a single shaft of sunlight moves across the interior like a sundial of eternity. Rome has built a temple, not only to its gods, but to the idea of order itself. And yet, beneath this grandeur, the ordinary life continues, humble, fragile, and human. In crowded apartments, families share bread and olive oil. In bathhouses, citizens talk of politics and poetry. Gladiators fight in the amphitheaters, their struggles both spectacle and symbol, a reflection of Rome's appetite for control and courage. The crowds roar not because they are cruel, but because they live in a world where strength is survival. For them, the arena is life compressed into moments of dust and blood. In the quiet corners of the empire, another idea begins to stir. One born not of marble palaces, but of poverty and compassion. In a small province on the empire's eastern edge, a teacher walks among fishermen and farmers, speaking of love, forgiveness, and a kingdom not of this world. His words spread slowly, carried by merchants and travelers along the Roman roads, whispered in houses and catacombs. The empire that once worshipped Jupiter and Mars now becomes the vessel of a faith built on humility. For centuries, both worlds coexist, the old and the new, the pantheon and the cross. In the reign of Constantine, the two finally meet. He sees a vision before battle, a symbol of light in the sky, and he converts, declaring Christianity lawful. The temples of Rome do not vanish overnight, but their meaning changes. The basilicas once used for commerce become churches. The empire of stone becomes an empire of spirit. Pause here for a moment. Breathe slowly. Imagine standing on a Roman road stretching straight toward the horizon. Each stone beneath your feet was set by hands long vanished. Along this path, legions once marched, merchants once sang, pilgrims once prayed. Through these roads the world was knit together, and through them ideas traveled faster than armies. Knowledge became immortal. Beyond the borders, the world shifts again. To the north, the forests of Germania stir with movement. Tribes long watched and feared begin to migrate, seeking warmth, seeking peace, seeking survival. They come not as conquerors at first, but as refugees fleeing other pressures farther east. Rome, proud and aging, accepts some, rejects others. The frontier becomes porous. The legions, stretched thin, can no longer hold the line. Inside the walls, wealth concentrates, politics decays, emperors rise and fall in rapid succession. The heart of the empire begins to slow. It is not one wound that ends Rome, but 1,000 small fractures. The weight of administration, the burden of distance, the quiet erosion of belief. In 410 CE, something once unthinkable happens. The Visigoths, led by Alaric, march into the Eternal City. They do not burn it entirely, but the shock is enough. For the first time in 800 years, Rome feels fear. The world that thought itself immortal learns that even eternity can tremble. Yet even in decline, the Roman spirit persists. In Constantinople, the new capital founded by Constantine, the empire survives in another form, rich and Byzantine, bridging east and west. Its libraries preserve Greek philosophy and Roman law. Its scholars study medicine, astronomy, and theology. When the Western Empire finally falls, the Eastern continues, a flicker of classical light lasting 1,000 years more. Take another slow breath. Imagine Rome in twilight. The marble is cracked, the fountains dry, but the air still carries the scent of history. The Forum lies quiet, its columns standing like memories. Somewhere, a monk copies a manuscript by candlelight, his hand steady, his letters small and perfect. He does not know it, but he is saving civilization, one word, one page at a time. Because that is what Rome truly built. Not conquest, not monuments, but continuity. The idea that knowledge can be preserved, that order can outlive chaos. Its laws become the skeleton of Europe. Its language evolves into Italian, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. Its roads become the foundations of nations. Even when its empire dies, its heartbeat continues, carried in every word of the languages you speak, in every concept of justice and citizenship that shapes the modern mind. Now the centuries begin to turn again. Across the old provinces of the empire, new kingdoms rise, some guided by faith, some by the sword. Monasteries appear where legions once camped, cathedrals where temples stood. The Middle Ages begin, not as darkness, but as transformation. The torch passes once more, from marble to manuscript, from empire to spirit. Before we leave this world of pillars and roads, look back once more at the Mediterranean under starlight. The waves move softly against the shore. Somewhere far below, the ruins of harbors and villas rest beneath the water, covered in coral and silt. Fish glide through the columns of what were once palaces. Even the sea remembers. The legacy of Greece, Persia, and Rome is not lost. It lives in the patience of stone, in the language of science, in the laws that govern the modern world, in the questions that still guide philosophy. Every civilization that comes after will build upon these foundations, borrowing their art, their governance, their vision of human dignity. Close your eyes for a moment. Hear the echo of sandals on stone, the whisper of scrolls turning, the murmur of marketplaces long vanished. The classical world is gone, but its light remains, scattered across the centuries like embers that will never cool. And as the last echoes fade, a new dawn rises over the lands that were once its provinces. The world is changing again. Faith and learning, east and west, will mingle and reshape each other. In monasteries and mosques, in castles and caravanserais, the next chapter of the human story begins. The stars turn, the centuries breathe, and we drift forward once more, into the Middle Ages, the bridges of knowledge and the rebirth yet to come. The civilizations of the Americas. Across the vast curve of the Atlantic, far from the empires of Rome and Persia, another world flourished unseen by Europe, unknown to Asia, yet ancient and wise in its own right. A world of mountains that touched the sky, forests that breathed like oceans, and rivers wide as dreams. Here, in the lands we now call the Americas, human beings built civilizations shaped by stone, sky, and silence. The story begins long before the pyramids rose in Egypt, with people crossing frozen lands and open seas, moving from Siberia into the vast expanse of the Americas. They followed herds and seasons, carried fire and memory. In time, they spread from the Arctic tundra to the tropical jungles, adapting to every environment on Earth. And from these migrations, over thousands of years, cultures emerged distinct, brilliant, eternal. In the north, on the great plains and forests, tribes lived close to the rhythm of nature hunters, gatherers, storytellers. In the deserts and valleys of the southwest, others built homes of clay and stone, carved into cliffs like honeycombs of light and shadow. And farther south, near the equator, where the air grew heavy with the scent of rain and fruit, the first great cities of the Americas began to rise. High in the Mexican valleys, the ancient city of Teotihuacan shimmered like a dream. Its streets ran straight and wide, lined with temples painted in red and white. At its heart stood two vast pyramids, the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon, their steps climbing toward the clouds. From their summits, priests watched the stars, measuring time by the dance of the heavens. They built, not in the name of kings, but of the cosmos, a geometry of faith, aligning earth and sky into one. The people of Teotihuacan mastered obsidian, that volcanic glass dark as night. From it, they shaped blades sharper than steel, mirrors polished to perfection. Through their markets flowed jade, cocoa, feathers of brilliant birds, shells from the distant sea. And from their temples rose incense, fragrant offerings to the gods of sun, rain, and maize. This was a city of mystery, home to perhaps 200,000 souls, the largest on earth in its time. Yet, like so many wonders, it would one day fall silent. Take a breath and imagine walking its Avenue of the Dead. The air is cool. The stones still remember footsteps. You can almost hear the echo of drums, the chant of priests, the murmur of a language lost to time. Teotihuacan's people left no record of their rulers, no written history of their fall. Their civilization faded into legend, its memory carried by later peoples who came to marvel at its ruins and call it the City of the Gods. Centuries later, in the dense rainforests of Central America, another great civilization blossomed, the Maya. They built cities of stone and green, where temples rose above the jungle canopy like islands of eternity. Tikal, Palenque, Copan, Calakmul names whispered among vines and echoes. Each city a masterpiece of design and devotion, its plazas filled with stelae carved with hieroglyph stories of kings, gods, and the turning of the stars. The Maya were astronomers of astonishing precision. They mapped Venus and the moon, predicted eclipses, measured the solar year with a margin of error smaller than that of modern calendars. To them, time was sacred, not linear, but cyclical, a wheel of endless renewal. Each moment carried the weight of cosmic balance, each day a reflection of the heavens. Their temples were observatories, their cities living calendars. From the top of a pyramid, a priest could read the sky like scripture. He knew when to plant, when to harvest, when to honor the gods with ritual and song. For the Maya, the universe was a great conversation between earth and sky, between human breath and divine rhythm. In the cool shade of their palaces, scribes painted books of bark paper codices filled with glyphs and color. These books recorded history, mathematics, and myth. Their language was intricate, their art alive with motion and detail. Every carving, every mural, every glyph spoke of order and beauty, of a civilization that sought harmony in every form. They built with limestone and lime mortar, carving faces of kings with eyes fixed on eternity. Their plazas filled with ball courts where athletes played games sacred to the gods, contests that symbolized the struggle between life and death, light and darkness. To win was to honor creation, to lose perhaps to join it in sacrifice. The Maya world was not one empire, but a constellation of kingdoms. Each city had its own rulers, alliances, and rivalries. They traded obsidian, jade, cacao, and feathers of the quetzal, that bird of emerald and crimson that seemed made of sunlight itself. Through trade and war, through art and science, they built a culture of profound sophistication. But even the greatest constellations fade. For reasons still debated: drought, deforestation, political collapse, the great cities of the Maya began to empty. Temples were left to the jungle. Palaces crumbled beneath roots and moss. By the time European ships would one day appear on distant horizons, the classical Maya cities had long been reclaimed by nature. Yet their descendants endured, keeping language and calendar alive, passing down knowledge quietly through centuries of change. Take another deep breath. The jungle hums with insects, with the pulse of unseen life. Somewhere, beneath layers of vine and earth, the stones of an ancient city still breathe, holding the warmth of forgotten suns. Civilization sleeps, but it does not die. It dreams in stone. Farther north, in the Valley of Mexico, another people rise to power: the Mexica, whom history will call the Aztecs. They come as wanderers, guided by vision and prophecy, seeking the place where an eagle will perch upon a cactus, devouring a serpent. When they find it, in the middle of a lake, they build their city, Tenochtitlan. Imagine it, an island city shining on still water, connected by causeways, crossed by canals, its marketplaces alive with color and sound. Here, at the heart of the Mexica world, art, war, and faith intertwine. The people farm the lake with floating gardens called chinampas, rafts of soil and reed anchored by willow roots, fertile and green. They harvest maize, beans, and squash. They raise temples that pierce the clouds. From the top of the Templo Mayor, priests offer gifts to the gods, a mingling of beauty and terror, sacrifice as dialogue with the divine. To the Aztecs, the cosmos is fragile, kept alive by blood and devotion. The sun itself must be fed with life to ensure its rising. In this, they are not cruel, but reverent, convinced that their duty sustains the universe. Theirs is a religion of cosmic reciprocity, of awe before the endless forces of creation and decay. Their capital dazzles those who later see it, a city larger than any in Europe at the time, its palaces decorated with mosaics of turquoise and gold, its people clothed in cotton and feathers. In its markets, tens of thousands gather each day, trading food, obsidian, jewelry, and art. Music fills the air. Poetry and dance are held in high honor. They call the act of creation Inzochitl, in Quetzalcoatl, flower and song. To live beautifully, to make art, is to honor the gods. Take a moment to rest in this vision. Canals shimmering under sunlight, gardens floating upon water, mountains rising in the distance. It is a city balanced between heaven and earth, beauty and duty. But destiny, as always, waits beyond the horizon. Even as the Aztecs reach their height, far to the south another empire thrives, an empire of stone and altitude, of terraces and stars. In the spine of the Andes, where the air is thin and the world seems to touch the sky, the Inca build their realm. They call it Tawantinsuyu, the land of four quarters, and it stretches from Ecuador to Chile, bound together by roads carved through mountains and deserts. Their capital, Cusco, sits in a sacred valley like the navel of the world. From it radiate roads that climb and curve for thousands of miles, the Capacnan, the Great Road. Along these routes move runners carrying messages on foot, each one relaying news from one station to the next with a breathtaking speed. Through them, the empire breathes a network of motion and purpose, rivaling the highways of Rome. The Inca build not with mortar but with mastery. Their stones fit so perfectly that not even a blade of grass can pass between them. They carve terraces into steep mountainsides, turning vertical cliffs into fertile gardens. They understand the balance of water, soil, and sun, engineering harmony from hardship. Above their cities rise temples to the sun, the moon, the thunder, and the earth. The Temple of the Sun in Cusco gleams with gold plates that catch the morning light. At Machu Picchu, a royal retreat perched on a mountain ridge, stone walls blend seamlessly with the peaks around them. It is a place of beauty beyond time, half city, half vision, suspended between sky and earth. Their society is ordered yet communal. Every person has a role, every harvest is shared. They have no written script, but they record information through quipu cords of colored thread, knotted in intricate patterns, each knot and color representing numbers, names, and stories. It is a language of touch and memory, read by fingers and mind together. The Inca calendar marks the rhythm of sun and season. Their ceremonies honor life's cycles of creation, fertility, and renewal. They do not worship power alone, but balance the equilibrium between human effort and natural grace. The empire of the Inca lives not by sword alone, but by thread, each village bound to the next through labor and faith. Across the highlands, runners dart like spirits along mountain paths, carrying messages, news, and tribute. They pause at stone way stations to rest and drink from clear streams, then vanish again into the mist. In this web of movement, the Andes themselves become part of the empire, every peak and valley a page in its unwritten history. At dawn, sunlight floods the terraces. Farmers step into the chill, their breath white against the sky. They plant maize and quinoa, potatoes and beans, in soils enriched by centuries of care. Llamas graze above them, on slopes where no plow can reach, their bells chiming softly. The air is thin, but it is sacred. Each act, planting, weaving, building, is a prayer, an offering to Pachamama, the Earth Mother, whose patience sustains all things. In the capital of Cusco, the streets shine with stone. Walls slope gently inward, polished to a smoothness that catches the morning light. Gold once lined the temples, reflecting the sun so brightly that travelers said the city glowed even at dusk. Priests climb the temple stairs to greet the rising sun with chants and the smoke of burning herbs. Their voices echo through the valley, answered by the cry of condors circling above. But even empires of faith and precision must face the weight of time. Civil war weakens the Inca, just as strangers arrive on their shores, men with iron and horses, carrying weapons that thunder and diseases unseen. The meeting of worlds that had grown apart for tens of millennia becomes a storm that neither side understands. Within a few decades, cities that had taken centuries to build fall silent. Yet the people do not vanish. In villages high among the clouds, Quechua and Aymara voices still sing the old hymns. Their weaving still carries the patterns of mountains and constellations. Their stories still honor the sun. Civilization changes shape, but the thread of memory endures. Take a breath and look down, from the peaks of the Andes to the plains below. Across the continents stretch other cultures, equally rich, equally complex. In the north, along the Mississippi River, mound builders raise earthen pyramids that rise from green plains like sleeping giants. At Cahokia, near the river's bend, tens of thousands gather: farmers, traders, artisans. Wooden palisades surround the central mound, where rituals mark the turning of seasons. From the air, the pattern is geometric, deliberate, sacred. These mounds, like the pyramids of other lands, are expressions of belonging, an attempt to anchor time in soil. Farther west, in the deserts of the ancestral Puebloans, cliff dwellings nestle beneath red stone overhangs. Mesa Verde, Chaco Canyon, their names given much later. Stone rooms open toward the rising sun. Ladders climb between stories carved directly from the cliff. In the plazas, the kiva's circular ceremonial chambers wait in silence. When you stand inside one, even in ruins, the acoustics feel alive. A whisper becomes a song. The walls remember. In the far north, where ice meets forest, the Inuit carve lives from the frozen sea. They travel in skin boats and sleds pulled by dogs, read the weather from the color of the sky. Every part of the hunt is sacred, every creature honored. Their art, ivory carvings, masks, songs carries a clarity as sharp as the cold itself. They show that civilization is not measured by stone or empire, but by understanding the ability to live in harmony with what seems impossible. Across the Caribbean, island cultures flourish: the Taino, the Carib, the Arawak. They sail by stars and wind, linking islands through trade and kinship. Their villages curve along beaches shaded by palms. Their canoes cut through turquoise water like gliding birds. They worship spirits of sea and storm, of fertility and dawn. They play games, hold feasts, carve wood into shapes that speak of gratitude and grace. Before the tides of conquest reach them, their world is whole, a constellation of islands bound by song. And in the great rainforests of the Amazon, countless communities thrive along the rivers, cultivating without destroying, fishing without depleting. They understand the forest as a living partner, a web of roots, spirits, and breath. For them, the earth is not a resource, but a relative. Their languages carry dozens of words for rain, each one describing a mood, a rhythm, a gift. Pause here and feel the scope of it: an entire hemisphere of civilizations, each tuned to its landscape, each guided by reverence for the natural world. Where Eurasia built empires of cities and roads, the Americas built empires of ecology, cultures that measured time by the ripening of fruit, by the migration of birds, by the hum of rivers at night. Even now, as you breathe, their descendants keep these rhythms alive. In Mexico's markets, Maya weavers sell cloth woven with the same patterns that once adorned royal robes. In Peru, Quechua farmers still plant by the stars, still make offerings of coca leaves to the mountains. In the plains of North America, drums still beat to songs that remember buffalo and sky. In every note, every color, every word spoken in an indigenous tongue, the ancient world lives on. Night falls over the continent. The Andes glow violet against the last light. Mist curls around the temples of Machu Picchu, the stones breathing softly in the cool air. In the jungle, cicadas sing. In the deserts, the wind moves through canyons like a slow river of sound. Everywhere, the spirits of the old civilizations linger, not ghosts, but guardians of memory. Imagine the stars above the Americas, the same constellations once traced by Maya astronomers, once mirrored in Inca temples, now shine upon modern cities built on ancient ground. Beneath them lie the ruins of pyramids and plazas, roads and terraces, sleeping beneath soil. But if you listen closely beyond the engine, beyond the noise, you can still hear their breath. The pulse of maize growing, the rhythm of drums in distant ceremony, the whisper of waves on Caribbean sand. Take one final breath in this world of mountain and jungle. The civilizations of the Americas were never silent. They were symphonies tuned to the language of the earth. Their monuments may have fallen, but their philosophy remains, that to live well is to live in balance, to give back to the world that gives to you. As dawn breaks over the Andes, the first light touches the ruins of Cusco and the stones of Chichen Itza alike. Gold glints on the horizon, just as it did thousands of years ago. And once more, humanity begins to move forward, carrying the lessons of harmony and respect that these civilizations left behind. Now the wind turns east again. Across the ocean, the old world shifts toward new beginnings. Empires crumble. Knowledge flickers. Faith renews itself in monasteries and mosques, in cathedrals and classrooms. The story of humanity continues, a single current flowing through all ages, connecting every shore. Rest for a moment before we cross that sea. The Americas sleep beneath the stars, their legacy woven into the heart of the earth. And when you are ready, we will sail back toward the dawn of another era, the Middle Ages, when the bridges of knowledge are built anew. The Middle Ages. Faith, knowledge, and resilience. The world changes again. The marble roads of Rome grow silent. The great aqueducts crumble under the weight of moss and time. Across Europe, cities that once echoed with Latin voices fall into quiet. Yet this quiet is not an ending. It is a pause, a long breath before renewal. The centuries that follow will be called the Middle Ages, often misunderstood, yet full of resilience, faith, and rebirth. Take a slow breath. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest somewhere in Europe around the 6th century. Mist clings to the trees. A village smokes faintly in the valley below. Wooden huts huddle together, surrounded by fields newly sown. The empire is gone, but the rhythm of human life continues, the turning of seasons, the tending of crops, the quiet repetition of prayer and song. In these early centuries, knowledge does not vanish. It changes shape. Roman law becomes memory. Greek philosophy becomes scripture. In monasteries built of stone and wood, monks dedicate their lives to copying manuscripts by hand. By candlelight, they write not to create, but to preserve. Each letter they trace is an act of devotion, a promise that memory will not die. Outside the monastery walls, the world seems fragile. Tribes migrate, kingdoms rise and fall. The Franks in Gaul, the Visigoths in Spain, the Lombards in Italy. But within those small rooms of ink and parchment, civilization quietly survives. The books of Aristotle and Virgil, of Euclid and Galen, are carried across generations by hands that never sought fame. In this stillness, the flame of learning burns low but steady. Now picture one of those monks bent over a page, his quill moving slowly, the smell of ink mixing with candle smoke. He pauses, looks out through a narrow window, and sees dawn rising over the fields. The same sun that once shone on Rome now lights his world of silence and duty. He smiles faintly and returns to his work. Because, in his small act of patience, lies the entire future of human knowledge. From this quiet devotion, Europe begins to grow again. Kingdoms stabilize, trade revives, and faith becomes the framework of order. Christianity spreads across the continent, carried by monks, priests, and kings who see in it a vision of unity. But this faith is not only dogma, it is also architecture, music, and light. It builds cathedrals that rise like forests of stone, filled with color and sound. The first great cathedrals of the Gothic age appear in Franche-Chartres, Amiens, Reims. Their walls stretch upward in arches that seem to defy gravity. Light pours through stained glass, turning the interior into a dream of color. Each window tells a story: creation, redemption, the daily life of saints and farmers. For those who cannot read, the glass itself becomes scripture. Step inside one in your imagination. Cool air surrounds you, incense drifts upward. A choir's voices rise, echoing through the vaulted ceiling. The harmony seems infinite human breath shaped into geometry, sound into prayer. In that moment, the cathedral feels less like a building and more like an emotion made solid, faith carved into light. Yet beyond these cities of stone, other worlds thrive. In the deserts and cities of the Middle East, another civilization rises, one that will preserve and expand the knowledge of antiquity. The Islamic Golden Age begins in the 8th century, centered in Baghdad, Damascus, and Cordoba. While Europe rebuilds, scholars in these lands collect, translate, and expand upon the works of Greece, Persia, and India. In Baghdad, the House of Wisdom stands as a beacon of learning. Its walls are filled with books, thousands of them, on mathematics, medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. Here, scholars of every faith work side by side, translating Aristotle, Archimedes, and Galen into Arabic, debating their ideas, refining them, and adding their own. The algebra we use today is born here. The very word comes from al-jabr. Astronomers chart the heavens, giving stars names that still shine in modern telescopes: Aldebaran, Betelgeuse, Altair. Physicians write encyclopedias of the human body that will guide medicine for centuries. Imagine walking through the streets of Baghdad at night. The city hums with trade and poetry, with the scent of spice and ink. Courtyards overflow with orange trees and fountains. Scholars debate beneath oil lamps, their words mingling with the sound of water. In this world, knowledge is not guarded. It is shared, translated, perfected. When darkness covers one part of the earth, another part keeps the flame. Far to the west, in Al-Andalus, Muslim Spain's cities like Cordoba and Granada shimmer with culture. The great mosque of Cordoba glows with red and white arches like waves of harmony. Its libraries hold hundreds of thousands of books, more than any city in Europe at the time. Here, Christian, Muslim, and Jewish scholars meet, exchanging language and logic, poetry and science. From this confluence of faiths, the Renaissance will one day awaken. Take a breath and listen to the quiet wisdom of that age, the call of the muezzin at dusk, the sound of a monk's bell at dawn, the rustle of pages turning in distant rooms. Humanity, divided in faith, remains united in curiosity. The search for truth crosses every border. Back in Europe, the centuries turn again. Feudal kingdoms rise from the ashes of empire. Castles crown the hills, fortresses of stone guarding fragile realms. Knights swear oaths of honor, peasants till the soil. The rhythm of life is simple but steady: planting, harvest, winter, spring. Music and storytelling fill the long nights. In villages and courts alike, bards sing of heroes and quests, of love that defies time. These tales of Arthur, of Tristan and Isolde, of Roland weave myth and history into moral song. And through all of it, the church remains the center of meaning. It provides structure, solace, and purpose in a world that often feels uncertain. But faith is not blind. It wrestles constantly with reason, and out of that tension, learning begins to bloom again. In the 12th and 13th centuries, universities appear first in Bologna, then Paris, Oxford, and Salamanca. Students gather in cold halls, debating Aristotle and Augustine, faith and logic. Professors lecture by candlelight, their words echoing in Latin across stone walls. It is here that Western philosophy begins to merge with the rediscovered works of the ancient world, filtered through the scholars of the Islamic world. Thomas Aquinas, drawing from Aristotle and Ibn Sina, writes of harmony between faith and reason. Science, theology, and philosophy stand side by side not as enemies, but as partners in the pursuit of truth. Beyond the classroom, the world grows more connected. Merchants travel farther, carrying not only goods but stories. Silk from China, spices from India, gold from Africa, all pass through ports like Venice and Genoa. The Silk Road hums with exchange. At every junction, people trade more than objects. They trade ideas. Across Europe, the great cathedrals continue to climb skyward, each arch and window a declaration that beauty itself can be an act of faith. In towns and markets, craftsmen carve stone gargoyles and angels. Masons work for decades on a single tower, knowing they may never live to see it finished. Their purpose is not completion, but contribution to leave something behind that points upward. In the countryside, the rhythm of life continues quietly. Villagers gather at dawn to work the fields, their tools glinting in the mist. Children chase geese between cottages. Bells mark the hours for prayer. It is a world small in space, but immense in meaning. Every season, every ritual, every grain of wheat carries the weight of survival and faith. At night, fires burn in hearths while stories are told not of kings, but of saints and miracles, of travelers who meet angels disguised as beggars. Each tale is a thread in a vast tapestry of hope. In these simple acts of storytelling, culture renews itself, generation after generation. Meanwhile, far beyond Europe, other civilizations flourish. In West Africa, the kingdom of Ghana grows wealthy on trade in gold and salt. Caravans cross the Sahara, long lines of camels shimmering under the sun, guided by Berber traders who read the stars. From these routes emerges the great city of Timbuktu, center of the Mali Empire under Mansa Musa. Here, mosques rise from red earth and libraries overflow with manuscripts. Scholars gather to discuss theology, mathematics, and law. It is said that when Mansa Musa travels to Mecca, he distributes so much gold that its value trembles for years. Africa too hums with the pulse of civilization, ancient, learned, radiant. Farther east, across the Indian Ocean, the Chola dynasty rules in southern India. Their ships sail to Southeast Asia, carrying spices, silk, and sculpture. In their temples, intricate carvings of gods and dancers swirl in eternal motion. The same rhythm of devotion beats from the Ganges to the shores of Java and Cambodia, where the Khmer Empire builds Angkor Wat, a city of stone and water, perfectly aligned to the rising sun. When morning light touches its towers, it glows as though made of fire. Even now, centuries later, the reflection of those towers in the moat below seems like time gazing upon itself. The Middle Ages were never only Europe. They were a world of exchange of ideas, of faith, of craft. While castles stood in France, astronomers studied the stars in Samarkand. While monks wrote Latin prayers in Ireland, poets in Japan composed haiku about cherry blossoms and the impermanence of life. Humanity was thinking, dreaming, praying everywhere, all at once. Back in Europe, a new energy begins to rise. Cities grow, trade expands, literacy spreads. Guilds of artisans form, ensuring fairness and excellence in every craft. Markets swell with color spices, cloth, glass, music. The sound of hammers and bells fills the air. This is not a dark age, but a dawn waiting to break. And yet, as in every age, the light is shadowed by tragedy. In the 14th century, the Black Death sweeps across the continent. A sickness born of trade ships and fleas spreads faster than thought. Villages fall silent, cities empty. 1 in 3 lives is lost. The world seems to shatter. Take a slow, deep breath. Imagine the silence after the plague. The air heavy, the streets still. In that stillness, people ask new questions. What is life? What is faith? What does it mean to live well, to die well, to love in a world that changes so swiftly? From that pain comes transformation. Art begins to shift. Painters look not only to heaven, but to humanity, to the curve of a face, the play of light on water, the sorrow in a mother's eyes. Writers seek wisdom, not in dogma, but in observation. The seeds of the Renaissance are sown in soil watered by grief and wonder alike. While Europe recovers, far to the east, the Mongol Empire rises under Genghis Khan, a storm that sweeps from the steppes across Asia. Cities burn, but roads open. Fear spreads, yet so does connection. From the destruction comes the Pax Mongolica, a vast peace under which merchants and envoys travel safely from China to the Mediterranean. Silk, gunpowder, paper, and printing move westward. Glass, mathematics, and medicine move east. The world, for the first time since Rome, feels united again by trade and curiosity. In China, the Song dynasty perfects printing, navigation, and gunpowder. They build cities of millions, with canals, markets, and universities. Their artists paint landscapes where mountains dissolve into mist, expressions of balance between humanity and nature. Later, under the Ming, explorers like Zheng He sail vast fleets across the Indian Ocean, reaching Africa's coast decades before Columbus ever dreams of the Western Sea. The Middle Ages are global threads of culture weaving across continents, unseen by each other, yet part of the same tapestry. Back in Europe, as the 15th century dawns, light gathers again. The printing press is born in minds, and with it, words gain wings. Books multiply, knowledge spreads like a new kind of wind. No longer must learning hide in monasteries, it walks openly in the streets. Philosophers write in their own languages, artists study anatomy, navigators draw maps of stars. The age of exploration, of questioning, of rediscovery begins to stir the Renaissance awakening in slow, radiant waves. But before we step into that new dawn, take a moment to breathe within this one. Picture the Middle Ages, not as shadow, but as quiet perseverance. In every continent, in every tongue, people built with faith, with patience, with resilience. They endured war and famine, plague and doubt, yet always they sang, wrote, carved, and dreamed. The human spirit, though tested, never stopped reaching for light. Now the bells of cathedrals toll again. Caravans return to the cities. Students fill the universities. Painters grind their pigments, mixing color with hope. In Florence, in Fez, in Samarkand, the air itself seems to shimmer with possibility. The long night of the Middle Ages gives way to a dawn of rediscovery, but the wisdom of that night remains, deep and enduring. Every civilization that follows will carry its lessons, that faith can sustain knowledge, that endurance can outlast chaos, and that in even the darkest times the human heart remembers how to build. Take one last slow breath. Hear the echoes of monks chanting in stone halls, of muezzins calling from minarets, of bells and drums and voices across oceans. Each one belongs to the same chorus, the song of resilience that has carried humanity through every age. Now the stars begin to fade, and the horizon glows again. The Renaissance waits a rebirth of art, of science, of wonder. The story of our shared past continues, always forward, always luminous. The Renaissance and the age of discovery. The darkness lifts. Morning breaks over Europe, over Africa, over Asia, over the endless oceans waiting in silence. The bells of cathedrals ring out across the dawn, and a new age begins, not one of kings or empires alone, but of minds awakened. This is the Renaissance, a rebirth not only of art, but of curiosity itself. For centuries, humanity had looked upward for meaning, seeking heaven in faith and salvation. Now, it looks inward and outward. Painters, scholars, explorers, and poets begin to see the world not as a fallen shadow of paradise, but as something worthy of wonder in its own right. To study nature becomes an act of devotion. To paint the human form, a kind of prayer. The divine and the human meet again, in balance, in light. In the cities of Italy, the air hums with invention. Florence, Venice, Milan, each one a laboratory of the human spirit. In Florence, a family of bankers called the Medici uses wealth not to wage war, but to fund art, science, and philosophy. Their patronage becomes a bridge between centuries, carrying forward the ancient wisdom preserved in monasteries and the Islamic world, now reborn in marble, pigment, and reason. In a studio filled with the scent of oil and plaster, a young artist bends over a canvas. His name is Leonardo da Vinci. He studies anatomy, not from books, but from life, dissecting, observing, sketching the mechanics of muscle and bone. For him, art and science are not separate paths, but two ways of touching truth. He paints the Mona Lisa with a smile that seems alive, her gaze following you like thought itself. He designs machines that fly, bridges that fold, cities that breathe centuries ahead of his time. He writes backward, as though guarding secrets too powerful for his age. To Leonardo, knowledge is infinite. The universe is a mirror, and the human mind is its reflection. In another workshop, Michelangelo hammers marble until it breathes. From cold stone, he releases David, poised, alert, radiant with human potential. He climbs the scaffolds of the Sistine Chapel, his arms aching, his eyes burning with color. On that ceiling, he paints the story of creation not as something distant, but as a touch between God and man. The spark of life passes from one fingertip to another. It is not only divine, it is human aspiration made visible. Outside the artist's studios, scholars reopen books long forgotten. They rediscover Plato and Aristotle, Lucretius and Cicero. They call their movement humanism, the belief that humanity itself, with its reason and empathy, is worthy of study and celebration. Education becomes not merely a path to piety, but to understanding. Libraries grow. Printing presses multiply words faster than the wind can carry them. Gutenberg's invention transforms thought into something eternal pages that can travel, endure, inspire. Take a slow breath. Imagine the sound of those early presses, the rhythm of metal type, the scent of ink and parchment. Each printed page is a heartbeat of a new world being born. No longer must wisdom belong only to the few. It flows into every city, every market, every mind willing to read. As the Renaissance spreads, its light touches every discipline. In science, observation replaces assumption. Astronomers lift their eyes not only in prayer, but in measurement. In Poland, Nicolaus Copernicus quietly writes that the Earth moves around the Sun, not the other way around. His idea will shake the foundation of centuries, yet it will also reveal a truth more wondrous than anyone had imagined. That we are not the center of the cosmos, but part of something vast and elegant. In medicine, physicians study the body directly, challenging superstition with evidence. In mathematics, geometry becomes art. proportion, and perspective transform painting into a new language of depth and realism. Artists learn to paint light itself, the invisible made visible. In Venice, Titian's colors glow like flame. In Flanders, Jan van Eyck paints reflections so perfect they seem to breathe. In Florence, Botticelli dreams of Venus rising from the sea, the embodiment of beauty reborn. In every city, the human form returns to the center of creation, not as arrogance, but as reverence for what life can be. The Renaissance is not confined to Europe. In China, scholars of the Ming Dynasty perfect porcelain and landscape painting arts that blend philosophy and beauty in equal measure. In the Islamic world, calligraphers write verses of the Quran so fluid and luminous they seem to float from divine to human hand. In Africa, empires like Mali and Songhai continue to flourish. The city of Timbuktu remains a center of learning, where scholars debate astronomy and law beneath the desert sun. The spirit of renewal is global, each culture illuminating its own path toward wisdom. But new winds are stirring winds that carry ships across oceans and change the world forever. The age of discovery begins not with conquest, but with curiosity. Sailors, guided by stars and courage, set out into the unknown. For millennia, the horizon had been a boundary. Now it becomes a question. In Portugal, Prince Henry the Navigator sends fleets along the coast of Africa, mapping the world inch by inch. In Spain, a Genoese sailor named Christopher Columbus dreams of reaching Asia by sailing west. In 1492, he sets sail 3 ships, 3 weeks, and a sea that no European has yet crossed. When he reaches new shores, he believes he has found the Indies. But in truth, he has reached another world entirely, one filled with civilizations ancient and proud. The meeting of worlds that follows is both miracle and tragedy. The maps of humanity are redrawn overnight. Trade and exploration bring exchange of crops, of knowledge, of languages, but also disease, conquest, and grief. The encounter between continents, so long separated, becomes the most profound turning point in human history. Take a deep breath, steady and slow. It is impossible to tell this part of the story without acknowledging both its light and its shadow. The same voyages that carried art, science, and connection also carried suffering. Empires rise upon oceans of discovery, but also on tides of loss. And yet, within that complexity, something new begins to take shape: a single world, interwoven by sea, by curiosity, by the restless desire to know. As the 16th century dawns, explorers like Magellan and Vasco da Gama circle the globe. They prove that the Earth is round, vast, and connected. Their ships return with spices, gold, and tales of wonder. The world that once felt infinite begins to seem knowable, and that knowledge, both thrilling and dangerous, changes everything. In Spain, wealth from the New World fuels palaces and cathedrals. In Portugal, explorers chart new routes to India and Japan. In England and the Netherlands, sailors dream of their own empires. The oceans become highways of ambition. But beneath the surface of power, another revolution brews one of thought. In Germany, a monk named Martin Luther nails his grievances to a church door, challenging authority in the name of conscience. His protest spreads like fire, dividing faith, awakening individuality. The Reformation begins a movement that will shatter Europe's unity, but also ignite its freedom of thought. Printing presses roar with pamphlets and debate. The word becomes weapon and light at once. Across the continent, thinkers wrestle with faith and reason, art and morality, discovery and doubt. It is a time of brilliance and turmoil, of symphonies and storms. And through it all, humanity grows more self-aware. Look around this age in your mind. Cities filled with artists and scientists, with merchants and explorers, music echoing from cathedrals, ships sailing beyond the horizon. It is not a perfect world. It is fragile, luminous, human, but it is awake. The Renaissance is not merely a return to the past, it is a bridge to the future. It connects the wisdom of antiquity with the vision of modernity, and through it, the idea of progress is born. Breathe in slowly and imagine the world beneath a Renaissance sky. The stars above are the same ones that guided farmers in Sumer, builders in Egypt, astronomers in China. But now, people look at them not with fear, but with wonder. The Earth is no longer the center, yet humanity feels more connected to the cosmos than ever before. The universe has grown larger, and so has the human spirit. The Renaissance will end, as all ages do, but its light will never fade. It will echo in every painting, every equation, every act of curiosity that follows. From it will come the next chapter, the age of revolution, science, and reason. But for now, rest in this golden twilight when art and discovery walk hand in hand and the human mind, for the first time in centuries, truly begins to dream again. The age of science and enlightenment, the world turns again. The glow of the Renaissance spreads beyond art and poetry, beyond sculpture and song. Its light deepens, focusing inward into the workings of the world itself. The stars, the human body, the invisible laws of motion all become subjects of wonder. It is no longer enough to praise creation. People now wish to understand it. And from that wish, a new kind of faith is born not in miracles, but in reason. Picture the 17th century at dawn. The air smells of ink and salt and discovery. Ships lie at harbor, their sails furled after voyages around the world. Printing presses clatter, universities awaken, and the first observatories open their shutters to the heavens. The planet itself feels wider now, yet the human gaze has never been sharper. In Italy, an old man lifts a small tube of glass and metal toward the night sky. His name is Galileo Galilei. Through his telescope, the moon ceases to be a perfect orb. It is rough, cratered, alive. He sees 4 tiny stars orbiting Jupiter, worlds circling worlds. The cosmos, once thought static, moves. It breathes. And in that motion, Galileo sees not blasphemy, but beauty. He whispers, "E pur si muove," and yet it moves. His discovery costs him freedom, but not peace, because he knows that truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. The Earth is no longer the center of the universe, but humanity remains at the center of its own curiosity. The heavens are not diminished by being understood, they are magnified. In England, another thinker watches an apple fall and wonders why. Isaac Newton studies gravity, optics, and motion. He writes equations that will describe the movements of planets and the fall of a feather. He finds order where others saw chaos, a universe bound by laws elegant and absolute. He says, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." He is not alone. He is the heir of centuries of thought and the foundation for centuries to come. Take a slow breath. Imagine those early scientists, men and women bent over candles, surrounded by glass vials, charts, and instruments of brass. They work not for wealth, but for wonder. Each discovery, each experiment, is a kind of prayer written in logic instead of song. In France, René Descartes sits at his desk, questioning the nature of reality itself. He writes, "Cogito, ergo sum," I think, therefore I am. In that sentence, he finds a new kind of certainty, that the act of thought proves existence. For centuries, humanity had trusted revelation. Now it begins to trust reason. This is the beginning of the Enlightenment, the age when light moves from stars to minds. Knowledge becomes conversation. Letters fly across Europe between mathematicians, philosophers, explorers, artists. Coffee houses become laboratories of thought. Salons turn into forums for new ideas. Printing presses hum without rest. spilling pamphlets, treatises, and dreams onto paper. The world begins to think aloud. In Holland, Antony van Leeuwenhoek looks through his microscope and sees life invisible to the naked eye, tiny creatures swimming in a drop of water. In England, Robert Boyle studies air and pressure, discovering that even the invisible obeys laws. In Germany, Kepler perfects the mathematics of planetary motion. In Sweden, Linnaeus classifies the living world, giving names to thousands of species. Everywhere, the universe opens like a flower, petal by petal, revealing order within mystery. And yet, this new rationality does not extinguish one, it amplifies it. To understand the world does not make it less beautiful, it makes beauty more profound. The more people learn, the more they realize how much remains unseen. In the salons of Paris, Voltaire writes against tyranny, his wit sharp as lightning. Diderot compiles the first great encyclopedia, a collection of all human knowledge, a monument of paper and reason. Montesquieu dreams of balanced government. Rousseau imagines freedom as a birthright. Their words move faster than armies, carried on the wind of printing and discontent. For the first time, people begin to ask not only how the world works, but how it should. Travelers circle the globe, charting new continents and seas. Naturalists collect plants and fossils, bringing them back to Europe like messages from the earth itself. Painters depict landscapes with the same reverence once reserved for saints. Music shifts from church to concert hall. Bach's counterpoint, Handel's oratorios, Vivaldi's seasons, each a universe of harmony reflecting the order that science reveals. Take another slow breath. Imagine standing in one of those early observatories. The night is still. Frost clings to the stone. A single candle burns beside an open telescope. Through it, a distant star flickers light that left its source long before Rome or Babylon or the first human fire. To witness it is to touch both infinity and intimacy, the vastness of time and the immediacy of wonder. As the Enlightenment deepens, its light begins to shine on society itself. Philosophers write of liberty, of equality, of the rights of every person. Governments tremble, revolutions stir. But before politics, there is always thought the slow accumulation of courage that begins in quiet rooms and ends in the changing of worlds. In Scotland, David Hume questions certainty itself, asking whether knowledge can ever be absolute. In Germany, Immanuel Kant answers, Sapere aude, dare to know. The motto of the Enlightenment is born. To think freely becomes a moral act. To question is no longer heresy, it is duty. Beyond Europe, ideas travel with sails and stars. Explorers map the Pacific, astronomers trace the transit of Venus from Tahiti. The age of empires expands, for better and for worse discovery intertwined with domination. Knowledge moves hand in hand with conquest, light with shadow. Yet even in distant colonies, schools, libraries, and printing presses take root. Humanity begins, however imperfectly, to imagine itself as one species, sharing one planet. Science grows bolder. In laboratories, electricity flickers for the first time, sparks dancing between metal rods, invisible yet alive. Chemists isolate elements, botanists classify ecosystems, engineers begin to dream of machines that move on their own. It is an age of acceleration. Each decade brings more change than the century before. And still, the stars look down unchanged, their silence reminding the thinkers below that wonder, not certainty, is the final wisdom. Take another breath. Feel the rhythm of progress, slow, deliberate, human. The Enlightenment is not merely an era of intellect, it is an era of hope. It believes that ignorance can be defeated, that cruelty can be diminished, that truth can set the mind free. Its optimism will not last forever, but its faith in reason will shape everything that follows. From this age of minds and instruments, a new world will rise, one driven by invention, powered by energy, connected by machines. The Industrial Revolution waits beyond the horizon, its engines already whispering in the distance. But for now, in this luminous century, the world sits awake beneath a canopy of stars, writing equations, composing symphonies, and daring to imagine a future built not by kings or gods, but by thought itself. The candlelight flickers. The ink dries on a scientist's page. Outside, the first light of modernity begins to break quiet, unstoppable, infinite. The industrial age and the rise of the modern world. The world changes again, not slowly this time, but all at once. Where once discovery came from the quiet scratch of pens in candlelight, now it thunders in factories and flashes in furnaces. Steam hisses, gears turn, cities rise like forests of stone and smoke. The earth itself seems to awaken, trembling beneath the rhythm of invention. It is the dawn of the industrial age, the moment when imagination learns to shape iron and the human will begins to master motion. Take a deep breath, slow and steady. Imagine a grey morning in 18th century England. The air smells of coal and rain. Across the fields, chimneys rise. Not the chimneys of homes, but of mills, their tall silhouettes exhaling clouds that join the sky. Inside, engines pulse with new power. The age of muscle gives way to the age of machines. In the workshops of Birmingham and Manchester, blacksmiths and dreamers become engineers. Among them, James Watt refines the steam engine, transforming heat into motion. With that single invention, time itself accelerates. Factories bloom beside rivers. Locomotives whistle across the countryside. Goods once made by hand in days are now produced by machine in hours. The sound of hammers and pistons becomes the new heartbeat of civilization. At first, it feels like magic, a promise of abundance. Textiles, steel, tools, and glass fill markets in quantities unimagined. Cities swell with workers seeking wages and purpose. The old world of fields and faith begins to blur into one of chimneys and schedules, of clocks that rule the day. Steamships cross oceans. Trains stitch nations together with iron rails. For the first time, distance itself seems to shrink. But progress is never pure light. Where the engines roar, the air thickens with soot. Children labor beside their parents. The rhythm of the machine leaves little room for rest. The wealth of invention pools unevenly. A few rise higher than ever, while many toil unseen. It is a paradox. Humanity creates abundance, yet must learn again how to share it. Still, something profound has begun. For millennia, power belonged to land, lineage, and conquest. Now it belongs to ideas, to those who can imagine and build. Inventors replace warriors. Innovation becomes the new courage. Across Europe and America, minds ignite. In France, Denis Papin experiments with pressure and pistons. In Scotland, Adam Smith writes The Wealth of Nations, describing the invisible hands that guide trade. In the United States, Eli Whitney builds the cotton gin. Benjamin Franklin captures lightning from the sky. Electricity, once the plaything of storms, begins its slow descent into human hands. Take another slow breath. Picture a laboratory at the edge of a new century. Glass tubes, copper wire, a single spark leaping through air. It is small, but in that spark lies the seed of the modern world. In the early 19th century, cities explode with growth. London, Paris, New York, Berlin. Their streets swarm with workers, carriages, and the smell of progress. Gas lamps flicker to life. Telegraphs carry words faster than any messenger. A message that once took weeks to cross continents now travels in minutes. The world begins to think in real time. Art and philosophy struggle to keep pace. Poets like Wordsworth and Blake look at the darkening skies of industry and mourn the lost intimacy of nature. Painters turn to light and emotion turn as storms. Delacroix's passion, Goya's shadows, each revealing beauty even in turmoil. In the factory's glare, humanity begins to see itself anew, not as servant of destiny, but as its author. Education expands. Public schools open their doors. Literacy spreads among the working class. Newspapers multiply. Knowledge becomes a right rather than a privilege. The voice of the people grows louder, demanding fairness, safety, dignity. From these demands, the first labor movements are born. Change, once the domain of kings, becomes the work of ordinary hands. Beyond the cities, exploration continues. Steamships cross the Atlantic. Railways pierce the American frontier, joining oceans with iron threads. In Africa and Asia, explorers map rivers and mountains, though behind many of these journeys lies the shadow of empire. The hunger for resources, for land and labor, spreads colonialism across the globe. The same engines that promise prosperity also power exploitation. It is a century of brilliance and contradiction invention, paired with injustice, compassion struggling against greed. And yet, through it all, the human story expands. Artists, reformers, scientists, and dreamers begin to question not only how the world works, but how it might be improved. Charles Darwin, sailing on the Beagle, observes the patterns of life and writes on the origin of species. He reveals that creation is not static, it is evolution, slow and patient, life reshaping itself through time. His theory stirs controversy, but also awe. It shows that humanity is part of nature, not above it, that we are kin to all living things. In physics, Faraday and Maxwell uncover the invisible dance of electricity and magnetism. Their equations will one day power every light, every wire, every satellite. In chemistry, Mendeleev arranges the elements into a table of elegant simplicity, a map of matter itself. In medicine, Pasteur and Lister bring science to healing, conquering infection and disease. Life expectancy grows, suffering lessens. Knowledge, once hoarded in libraries, begins to serve the body and the home. Pause for a moment. Imagine walking through a 19th century city at dusk. Streetlights flicker on, glowing golden through the fog. Horse-drawn trams rattle along cobblestones. Shop windows gleam with new machines. Above it all, the clock tower chimes time itself, now mechanical, measured, precise. The world moves to a rhythm of invention, its pulse quickened by hope and hunger alike. As the century turns, invention becomes unstoppable. Thomas Edison lights the first electric bulb. Nikola Tesla dreams of wireless energy and global connection. The telephone carries voices across miles. The photograph captures memory itself. The locomotive and steamship shrink the planet into a single humming web. For the first time, humanity begins to see itself as one civilization, sharing one modern age. But progress brings its own storms. The Industrial Revolution, once a symbol of promise, gives rise to new inequalities, new conflicts. Empires expand, competing for resources. Nationalism burns hot in the hearts of nations. The same technology that builds bridges can also forge weapons. The 20th century waits brilliant and terrible, filled with both miracles and mistakes. Take one more long breath. The world now glows at night. From space, if one could look down, the continents would shimmer with light threads of gold and silver weaving the dark. Cities hum, trains glide, and across the air moves a faint vibration. Electricity, the pulse of progress. The industrial age has changed everything. It has lifted billions, scarred the earth, and created the modern world a place of possibility and peril. But behind every machine still beats a human heart, still whispers the same ancient longing. To build, to understand, to endure. Soon, that longing will face its greatest tests in wars, in revolutions, in the birth of the global age. And yet, through all of it, the same spirit that first struck flint for fire will carry forward. Same courage that crossed oceans will one day reach the stars. So rest here for a moment, in the hum of engines and rain against iron roofs. The world is changing, but its story remains the same. A story of light born from darkness, of hands shaping hope, of minds forever asking, what comes next? The modern era, wars, dreams, and the global age. The new century dawns not with peace, but with promise, a fragile promise glittering like dew at the edge of a storm. The 20th century begins with steel, steam, and optimism. Cities blaze with electric light. Music fills the air, and invention seems unstoppable. Airplanes rise into the clouds. Telephones carry voices across oceans, and motion pictures capture life itself in flickering silver. Humanity, for the first time, believes it might finally command its destiny. Take a slow breath. Imagine standing on a city street in 1900. Electric trolleys hum past. Gas lamps glow beside new electric ones. Shop windows sparkle with mechanical wonders. Men and women in fine coats stroll through parks, confident in progress, in science, in civilization. It feels as if history has reached its summit, as though reason and invention have tamed the chaos of the world. But beneath the glitter lies tension. Empires stretch across continents, competing for land and power. Industrial might feeds armies as easily as factories. National pride grows fierce. Old rivalries sharpen like blades. Progress has given humanity immense strength, and with it, new temptations. In 1914, the storm breaks. The assassination of a single archduke in Sarajevo ignites a chain of alliances and fears, and the First World War begins. It spreads like fire through Europe, devouring cities, swallowing generations. Trains once built for commerce now carry soldiers. Chemistry, once used for medicine, now creates weapons. For 4 years, the world becomes a landscape of trenches and smoke, of courage and despair. Take another breath, long and quiet. Imagine a night on the Western Front. The ground trembles with distant thunder, not weather, but artillery. In the cold mud, young men wait for dawn. They write letters to mothers, to lovers, to futures they will never see. And still, they dream of peace. When the war ends in 1918, silence feels heavier than sound. Millions are gone. Empires collapse. Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, Russian, German old orders dissolved by the sheer weight of suffering. The world promises never to forget, never to repeat such horror. But memory is fragile, and the century is far from done. In the ashes of war, nations rebuild. Factories hum again. Radios crackle with jazz and news. The 1920s glitter with hope. The Roaring Twenties, they call it. Skyscrapers rise in New York. Paris dances under electric light. Scientists split the atom. Artists paint dreams. It seems, once more, that humanity has escaped its shadows. But shadows always return. In 1929, the markets crash. Banks fail. Jobs vanish. Hunger spreads across continents. Fear follows fear that seeks answers in strong voices, simple promises, and cruel divisions. In the 1930s, authoritarian leaders rise, preaching power and purity. Fascism marches in Italy and Germany. Militarism grows in Japan. The world, still healing from one war, begins to drift toward another. And then, in 1939, the world breaks again. The Second World War begins with the invasion of Poland. It becomes the deadliest conflict in history, fought on every sea, every sky, every shore. Tanks roll across Europe. Bombs fall from clouds. Entire cities vanish overnight. But amid the destruction, courage endures. Resistance movements rise in secret. Families hide the hunted. Soldiers cross continents for a dream of peace. In 1945, when the guns finally fall silent, the world has changed forever. The Holocaust reveals the depths of cruelty, the atomic bomb, the edge of destruction. For the first time, humanity holds the power to end itself and must learn the wisdom not to. Pause here and breathe. The cities smoke, but dawn rises still. Amid the rubble, people begin again rebuilding homes, rewriting laws, reimagining what civilization can mean. They found the United Nations, hoping that dialogue might prevent future wars. Colonial empires dissolve. New nations emerge, voices long silenced now speaking for themselves. Technology, too, transforms faster, smaller, more connected. The modern age begins, both bright and trembling. In America and Europe, prosperity returns. Televisions glow in living rooms. Highways stretch like veins of light. In 1961, a rocket launches from Earth carrying a human being into orbit. Yuri Gagarin circles the planet once, and the world looks up in wonder. For the first time, we see our home from above, blue, delicate, finite. And in that sight, something ancient awakens, the realization that we are one species sharing one fragile world. The space age begins. The moon becomes the next horizon. In 1969, as millions watch on glowing screens, Neil Armstrong steps onto lunar dust. His words are calm, almost whispered. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The moment belongs not to one nation, but to everyone. The dream of all explorers from the river valleys of Mesopotamia to the ships of Magellan has reached the stars. Back on Earth, another revolution unfolds, not of empires, but of minds. Civil rights movements demand equality. Women fight for independence and voice. Artists and scientists alike seek truth in freedom. Music becomes protest. Poetry becomes power. The old hierarchies tremble beneath the rhythm of progress. But progress remains imperfect. The same science that cures disease also builds bombs. The Cold War divides the planet, east and west, locked in a standoff of ideology and fear. For decades, two superpowers balance on the edge of annihilation. The world learns to live under the shadow of the mushroom cloud, praying that wisdom will hold. Take another breath, steady, soft. Beneath the tension, humanity continues to create. Computers, once room-sized machines, shrink to desktops, then to pockets. Satellites encircle the Earth, linking nations by invisible threads of data. For the first time, information travels at the speed of thought. The digital age dawns not with smoke and gears, but with light and code. In the late 20th century, walls fall both literal and imagined. The Berlin Wall crumbles, apartheid ends, communication crosses borders once sealed. The world grows smaller and larger, at once divided by wealth, yet connected by technology. People speak across oceans instantly. Ideas flow freely. The planet hums with voices, all at once. Humanity, for all its flaws, begins to see itself as one network of thought. Yet the lessons of the past remain vital. Wars still burn. Injustice still breathes, but so does hope. Every generation inherits both progress and responsibility, the power to build and the duty to heal. Look around the modern age in your imagination. Cities glitter with light. Planes trace ribbons across the sky. Screens glow in the hands of billions. But beyond all the noise, the same truths endure. The earth beneath your feet, the sky above, the breath within you. Technology may change the world, but it cannot replace wonder. Take a long, calm breath. Imagine looking at our planet from space. Blue oceans swirling with white clouds, continents glowing faintly in the night. No borders, no divisions, only a fragile sphere of life spinning through darkness. All the wars, all the empires, all the songs and dreams, all of them contained within that small luminous world. This is the legacy of the modern era, to know our power and to learn humility before it, to reach for the stars but remember the soil, to connect across distance, but not forget compassion. To keep building, learning, questioning, and resting too in the quiet awe of being alive. The world hums now with circuits instead of engines, satellites instead of sails, yet the journey is the same. We are still explorers of sky, of sea, of soul. And though our tools may change, our story remains eternal. We seek meaning, we seek light, we seek one another. So breathe once more, slowly. Let the sound of time soften around you, the ticking clocks, the city lights, the quiet pulse of your own heart. From fire to fiber optics, from stone tools to stars, this is humanity's story. And though its chapters are written in triumph and tragedy alike, they form one book, the story of us all. The century turns again. A new millennium dawns, digital, uncertain, luminous. The questions remain the same. Who are we? Where are we going? And what will we choose to build with the time we are given? The legacy of civilizations and the future of humanity. Night falls again, gently, over the turning earth. The lights of cities shimmer like constellations, each one a reflection of the stars above. From orbit, the planet glows oceans of blue, veins of gold, a fragile sphere of memory and motion. All that we are, all that we have ever been, lives within this single world. And tonight, as the ages whisper through the quiet of your mind, we arrive at the final chapter, a meditation not on endings, but on continuity. Take a deep, slow breath. You have traveled far through deserts and empires, across oceans and centuries. From the firelit caves of the first humans to the cities that never sleep, you have followed the thread of civilization as it wove its intricate tapestry across time. Now, let us look back, softly, and see what it has made. Each civilization, no matter how powerful, began with a story, a belief that life could be shaped, that meaning could be built. The Sumerians carved their words into clay, trusting that memory could outlast voice. The Egyptians built pyramids that mirrored eternity. The Greeks asked what truth meant, and the Persians sought order among diversity. The Romans built roads that still endure beneath modern feet, while the Maya and the Inca carved harmony into stone and mountain. The Chinese watched the heavens and built balance into their laws. The Indians sought the infinite in the self. Every culture, every people, every age, all searching for a reflection of the same light. And though they rose and fell, none truly vanished. Ideas do not die. They migrate, transform, take new shapes. The alphabet of the Phoenicians flows into the words you read now. The numbers of India count the stars in our telescopes. The architecture of Rome shapes our cities. The ethics of Greece guide our democracies. The music of Africa beats in every rhythm of the world. Civilization is not a sequence of ruins. It is a single heartbeat, echoing through all time. Take another breath. Imagine walking through the ruins of an ancient city beneath the stars. The air is cool, the stones warm from the day. You run your fingers along carvings made by hands long gone. The silence is not emptiness, it is listening. These walls remember laughter, language, labor, love. You realize quietly that they were not so different from us. They too worried and dreamed, built and believed, sang to the stars and wondered what might come after. If civilization has a soul, it is curiosity, the refusal to stop asking. Every discovery is a question answered and 1,000 more revealed. We have split atoms and reached the moon, but we are still learning the oldest truths, that kindness matters more than conquest, that empathy is wiser than pride. Every age teaches the next what to cherish and what to avoid. We inherit both wisdom and wound. In the 21st century, humanity stands at a crossroads unlike any before. We can connect with anyone across the globe in a heartbeat, yet many feel alone. We can feed billions, yet hunger still lingers. We can shape the very fabric of life, yet sometimes forget how fragile it is. Our tools have outpaced our wisdom, and so, as in every age, we must pause, breathe, and listen again. The planet itself speaks softly, if we choose to hear it. The ice melts, the forests sigh, the oceans rise and fall like breath. Civilization's greatest challenge is no longer discovering new worlds, but preserving the one we have. The ancients built temples to honor their gods. Perhaps ours should be made of living things, of forests protected, of waters restored, of skies kept clear for the next dawn. But there is hope. Always there is hope. Each generation rediscovers it, like light found beneath dust. Scientists, artists, teachers, dreamers, they are the new builders of civilization. Their monuments are not of stone, but of compassion, cooperation, imagination. Every act of understanding, every word of kindness adds another brick to the city of the future. Take another slow breath. Imagine the earth as it turns now. Continents sleeping, others waking. In some places, morning light touches the roofs of villages. In others, night deepens over oceans, over forests, over quiet streets. Billions of people dream at once, each mind a flicker of story. Together, they form the living memory of our species. All the centuries, all the discoveries, all the dreams, they converge in this single moment. You are part of that continuum, a note in the eternal song of humanity. Every breath you take is a thread in the fabric of history, woven with those who came before and those who will come after. The stars above you are the same that guided the first sailors, the same that glowed over the pyramids and the Great Wall, the same that watched empires rise and fade. They shine, indifferent and eternal, yet somehow tender, as if they too remember. Now let your thoughts drift outward, like mist over water, beyond the cities, beyond the centuries, beyond even the borders of this world. The story of civilization has always been a story of expansion, of seeing farther, understanding more, feeling deeper. And it continues still. Spacecraft sail beyond the planets. Telescopes gaze into the dawn of time itself. We are beginning to see the first galaxies ever born, echoes of creation, light billions of years old. The universe is vast, and we are small, but in our smallness lies something divine, awareness. Perhaps this is civilization's true purpose, to awaken the cosmos to itself, to give voice to the stars, consciousness to the dust, meaning to the void. When we study, build, heal, and dream, we fulfill the oldest promise of life, to know itself. So rest now, traveler of ages. The story does not end here, but flows onward through tomorrow's children, tomorrow's science, tomorrow's art. What you have seen tonight is only a reflection, a shimmering thread in an infinite web. Civilization is not a monument of stone or metal. It is an act of continual becoming. You are part of it, your breath, your kindness, your wonder. The world sleeps beneath the stars, but history never stops breathing. The rivers still flow where the first villages stood. The wind still carries dust from the ruins of Babylon to the streets of modern cities. The earth remembers, and so do we. Take one final deep breath. Let it out slowly. Feel the centuries settle into silence. All the roads, all the rivers, all the minds of the past, they have led here, to this quiet moment. The story of civilization is the story of consciousness, learning to rest, to grow, to endure. And as you drift into sleep, remember, you too are a continuation of that story. A single heartbeat in the long dream of humanity. So close your eyes, that the lights of the modern world fade into starlight. The hum of cities becomes the echo of ancient seas. Time softens, the world breathes, and somewhere in the stillness, the voice of history whispers gently, "We are one." and we endure. Good night. The ages